See right here. What up? What up? What up? Welcome to another episode of the Sports PSP podcast. Hope everyone is enjoying a fantastic day. Hope everyone is, taking some time off to themselves, whatever the case may be. I am your host, Sports PSP. And of course, I can't do the show without my man, the four-time college degree, military man. Got his own place, got his own spot. Columbus, Georgia's own, doing his thing. Proud of him. He's smart. He's brilliant. I call him the young Charles Barkley, the Al Roker of journalism. He's staying away from Daiquiris and Po' Boys, but make no mistake about it, you'll definitely see him at Daiquiris and Po' Boys come football season. The one and only undisputed world champ. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. That is one hell of an introduction. I'm going to say one thing. You lining the prospects up for me. I give you that much. I appreciate that. But man, everything's good. Life is good, man. I'm just happy it's Friday, so I can be right here where I need to be, man. On the Undisputed, on with you and me. The Undisputed Alliance, the Awesome Alliance, be on the Sports PSP podcast, man. I'm just happy to be here, man. Like I said this before and I said it again, and I know it's getting repetitive. I'm enjoying being on the same show with the Tom Joyner of podcasting, man. It's a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be on here, man. All the way up to 155, all the way up. Well, we're going to speak life into it. All the way up to 155. I know you're not at that number as of yet. We're going to speak life into that because it's going to happen. It's just only a matter of time, man. I mean, just a year ago we was talking about 50,000. Now you up to 115. We just gonna go ahead and say it, man. All the way up to 150K, man. Hey, whoever out there, man, sign my guy PSP, man. Sign my guy PSP. Sign him. Hurry up before somebody else get it.
Absolutely, man. We're gonna do some big things on the Sports PSP podcast, and definitely somebody's going to be calling for us. And also, please go like and subscribe to the Undisputed World Champ podcast every Monday nights as well with BRF and Flash. Unfortunately, BRF is not here with us tonight. He has to take care of some things, but we totally understand. But, Champ, let's get into it. NBA Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. We talked about Game 5 on Tuesday night, Basketball Tuesday. We thought Tyrese Halliburton should sit, but he decided to play. Boy, the Indiana Pacers came to play, champ. They played far better than what they did in Game 5. The turnovers, they were much improved. They cut down on the turnovers, but the bench, T.J. McConnell, especially what he did on defense, the steals, Obi Toppin dropping 20 points, Pascal Siakam, that dunk on Jalen Williams. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did not have a great game. 8 turnovers in that game. Chet Holmgren has been struggling taking care of the hasn't been hitting his threes. Hasn't been hitting his threes well at all. Rick Carlisle, it was kind of intriguing when in his entrance he played mini men. They played mini men for him. But oldest coach, the coach of finals. But I'll give you a lot of credit, champ. You still riding with Indiana. I still have OKC. What were your thoughts on last night's game? And do you think that Indiana is going to wrap up this series?
Yes, they're going to wrap it up. I think they're going to wrap it up. I really think they are. The last 4 teams that fell down 3-2 and came back and won, they're 4-0 in the finals when they won Game 7. That's my Los Angeles Lakers. That's LeBron's Cleveland Cavaliers, just to name a few. The last 4 who went to a Game 7 after falling down 3-2, they went on to win the finals. Now, granted, only 2 of them was road teams. I think there was the Cleveland Cavaliers. But I do have faith in Naptown at this point that they're going to be able to overcome and persevere, man. And look, that pass from Tyrese Halliburton to Siakam to Spicy P, if they win, I'm going to just speak life into it. When they win the finals, that has to go down in history as one of the most iconic passes right next to LeBron and D-Wade. That's going to go right up there with them for most iconic pictures because that was very iconic, especially with that dunk just to finish it off. I really think that that's going to be one of the highlights of the NBA Finals once it is over, man, because that was flat out amazing. And look, I give a lot of credit to that franchise. I have to give a lot of credit to them. I wouldn't have played it. I was very, very steadfast about playing them. But Rick Carlisle is a championship coach for a reason. He's back in Indiana for a reason. You know, people forget that he was the coach doing Malice in the Palace. And, you know, he was able to at least just.
And he's a champion too, champ. People have forgotten that he was the head coach for the Dallas Mavericks when they beat the Big Three in Miami the first year.
Yes, they did. And he started the Bad Boy Pistons Part 2. The Bad Boy Pistons Part 2. He started that before they end up letting him go and hiring Larry Nixtown Brown. So, so he's a coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach for a reason. Not to mention his roots are from Boston with Casey Jones and Larry Bird. So he has a ring, and he's up there with some of the top coaches in history for a reason. He knew what he was doing, and I commend them for playing him. Like I stated, if I was the franchise, even looking back on it, I probably would have been like, no, you ain't got no choice in this matter. You finna sit down. But big ups to that organization for having not only faith in their coach, but in their players as well. And look, there's an old saying that goes, you can have a bunch of stars on a team or a team that's a star. And Indiana is definitely a team that's a star. They have a team that is a star. They collectively came together and did their thing. And I have to commend them for that, especially considering they was down 3-0. They was down 3-2, and it wasn't looking good for them at all. When you fall down 3-2 and it's not looking good for you, you come out there and you just step on their neck in a game 6 like that, in a deciding game on your home court, that is nothing short of amazing, and they have to be commended for that. And like I stated, although Tyrese Halliburton didn't have that spectacular, Isaiah Thomas type of performance, he needs to be commended for going out there and playing, because that was a gutsy play. That was a gutsy game that he played. Because like I said, every time you go out there, especially when you have an injury, you risk further injury. For you to go down with the ship, go down swinging, that has to be commended at this point. It must be commended. So pat on the back to Naptown, man. Hope y'all can finish it out in OKC, man. Like I said, I'm going down with the ship. Naptown, I believe they're going to take it.
All right. Shout out to my girl, Nessa. Please go follow her on the Sports View podcast, on the Wrestling Podcast. If y'all want to listen and hear her out regarding wrestling, please go like and subscribe to her content. She does a great job. Her, John Watson, Mr. Houston, Nick, all of them. Please go like and subscribe to her content. Champ, when you look at it at the game, you just look at Oklahoma City. 8 of 30 from 3-point range. Indiana 15 of 42. What was killing Oklahoma City? Them turnovers. I think, in my opinion, I don't know, Oklahoma City, I think they got a little too full of themselves because they won games 4 and 5. They figured, okay, game 6, we got one game to go. There's speculation. Shout out to our girl, Nessa. Again, everyone go subscribe and follow Sports PSP. Thank you, Nessa. And also make sure to follow Champ as well, and BRF and Flash. But to me, Champ, in my opinion, I don't know. Maybe that the Oklahoma City, they got a little too complacent because we don't know if Halliburton was going to play. Now, in his mind, he was going to play because, of course, he didn't want to sit in that game. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. But give Tyrese Halliburton a lot of credit. That fan base, it was great seeing Lance Stevenson, Reggie Miller, Mark Jackson, some of the great Indiana Pacers who came to play, who played for the organization to represent and support the team. So it was great, man. And of course, like I mentioned, the bench. When you're getting production from TJ McConnell, I'm reading the stats right here: 12 points, 6 of 12 shooting, 9 rebounds. 9 rebounds from TJ McConnell. TJ McConnell is 6'1", 190 and getting 9 rebounds. And then Obi Toppin dropping 20 points. When your bench steps up like that, in a game of that magnitude, that is confidence. And with Oklahoma City, look, Chet Holmgren is going to have to do a better job shooting from the three. SGA had a bad game last night. I can't defend it. Even though I believe OKC will win game 7. Matter of fact, and for those who may not know, this is the first game 7 since the 2016 NBA Finals, going back to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Golden State Warriors, in which LeBron James, Kyrie Irving came back from a 3-1 deficit against the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. Even though the game is at Oklahoma City and I expect Oklahoma City to handle their business, it's not going to be easy. They're going to be the favorites. And what's great for Indiana, they're on the road and they're the underdogs. And Tyrese Halliburton, his calf injury didn't seem to bother him. And Pascal Siakam, who has championship pedigree, just like Rick Carlisle as well. So to me, if Nesmith, Nembhard, Toppin, McConnell, and the other guys step up and keep the start off the game well, and then late, because we know the ball's going to go into Tyrese Halliburton's hands. He's hit big shots before. The Milwaukee series, the New York series, game 1 of the NBA Finals. So Tyrese Halliburton is not afraid of clutch moments. I could see Indiana winning this one. But if Oklahoma City wants to have any chance, Jalen Williams, he's capable of a big game. We saw him drop 40 in game 5. Chet Holmgren is going to have to do a better job hitting from the 3, and he's going to have to be that defensive guy. SGA is going to have to step up, but Lorenz Dort didn't shoot the ball well from 3, and over the years, he's improved his 3-point shot. He didn't step up in that game in game 6. As a matter of fact, if I'm just looking at the numbers right here, 1 of 5 from the field. 1 of 5 from the field. The bench from Oklahoma City, if they want any chance of winning that one, their bench is going to have to match up with Indiana's bench. That's how I feel.
And you're absolutely right, if you want me to be honest with you. And look, I can tell you who's happy that is going to a game 7. Seattle Supersonics fans, because for Seattle to win even a championship years later after Seattle has been departed for almost 20 years, that will be like the Baltimore Ravens winning the championship after they left Cleveland. So I know that Seattle fans are praying that the Indiana Pacers pull this out, because that would just be devastating for the Supersonics fans, the Supersonic faithful at this point. So I don't think they want because if the Atlanta Hawks left Atlanta and went to, let's say, Wyoming, I wouldn't want them to win. So you can best believe the Seattle Supersonic faithful are happy that it's going to a game 7. I know they are, but you have to have help from your bench at this point in time. You must. You can't turn the ball over. And to your point, you have to pull out all the stops when it comes to these big games. You have to play mistake-free. You have to play mistake-free. You have to learn from teams before you. Remember, one big mistake can cost you an entire series. Remember the Draymond Green mistake?
Yeah, when he got suspended in game 5 because of the incident in game 4 with him and LeBron.
Yes. So that one mistake may have cost them. They may very well be 5-0 right about now when it comes to NBA Finals. So one mistake can really, really cost you. And you have to be mindful of the mistakes that you make. You have to play mistake-free basketball when it comes down to the NBA Finals. And I don't think that last game that OKC did a hell of a job of that. They did not do a good job of that. So, hey, you have the advantage. You're going back home. Oklahoma City is not an easy place to play. It is not. It is very, very loud. The fans are rowdy, and it could and the roof can just blow off that place. But you're going to have to take care of business. Just because you go home for game 7 doesn't mean that you got it. Look at what happened in 2016 when everybody just knew that during game 7, that the Golden State Warriors was going to beat LeBron in the Oracle. They had everything going for them. You had the home field advantage. You had the best 3-point shooter of all time, one of the best teams of all time. You had the 73-9 record. Beat the Bulls during the regular season as far as record is concerned. You had everything going for you. And that one mistake cost you everything. You got to play mistake-free this next game, OKC, if you want to win. You got to play mistake-free.
All right. Champ still has Indiana. I still have OKC. Champ, let's move on. Let's still continue on to some basketball. Your Lakers, the Buss family, they sold the franchise for $10 billion. What are your thoughts?
Oh, man. It's a end of an era. End of an era for the Buss family. I mean, they owned the team ever since the Magic Johnson days. They've owned that team since the Magic Johnson days. They drafted Magic Johnson and they just helped resurge the NFL. They helped resurge the NBA. They helped resurge it. So, to be honest with you, this is truly the end of an era. I really think the aura of the Los Angeles Lakers passed away with the great Dr. Buss. I really believe that because ever since Dr. Buss died, outside of LeBron, of course, we made a lot of trades. We got Anthony Davis, we got Luka, we got a few key players in order for us to win in the bubble. But that Laker aura was not what it was when Dr. Buss unfortunately passed away. It was never the same after that. And you heard a lot of rumors and you heard a lot of people saying they should sell the team because they were still running it like a family-owned business. And, you know, the league had long before just moved on from that type of business model. Now, luckily, it's still going to belong to Los Angeles because Mark Walter is the owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Yes. And guess what? We're going to be seeing a hell of a lot more Magic because he's a part of that Guggenheim group that bought the Dodgers. So we're going to see a lot more Magic.
Yeah, he's a part of the Dodgers group. Yeah.
Yes, he was part of that Dodgers group. So I think the cornerstones of the Lakers are going to remain. I think the cornerstones because Jeannie Buss, she's still going to be the governor. You're going to see more of Magic because he's part of the Guggenheim group. And I believe that this is going to make the Lakers more of a powerhouse than they ever were. Because Mark Walter and the Guggenheim group, they have loan money. And that's what you need in order to attract these free agents. That's what you need in order to build stars. You saw what they did with Ohtani. You saw what they did by stealing Freddie Freeman from my Atlanta Braves. And he played a key role in them winning that World Series last year. That's not taking away anything from Ohtani. But Freddie Freeman, and I think BRF and Flash said it best, he's the new Mr. October as far as the MLB is concerned. He's the new Mr. October because he's going to get you that home run in the World Series in order to win you a World Series.
And he's the face of MLB.
Yes,
one of the faces. Yeah.
Yes, Freddie Freeman. I still call him Mr. Atlanta because he was able to bring my Atlanta Braves back a World Series. But I will say this. There's going to be a lot of changes. But there's no doubt in my mind that this group is going to get the Lakers back to prominence like we've never seen it before. This group does not like to lose. This group doesn't mess around. And they don't play games. If you know this group like I know them, they've been in Los Angeles for years. They've moved off a lot of great players. They've moved off of them and bought in someone greater. So whoever's in that organization right now, as far as players is concerned, you might want to clean up your act now that you're going into a new ownership. Yeah. And like I said, granted, Jeannie Buss is still gonna be the governor. But you can best believe behind the scenes, the big group is going to be pulling the strings. But the Guggenheim group, the Mark Walter, the team still belongs to Los Angeles. It's still going to be Los Angeles' team. That's the thing. I'm glad that no outsider of Los Angeles bought it.
It's gonna be it's gonna be complicated for that franchise to leave Los Angeles, given the championships and the heritage and the history of Lala. I mean, that's gonna be hard to do. You're gonna really tune off some Laker fans if you do that, champ.
Yes, and that's how come I'm glad that it stayed with the that group is Los Angeles. That's the Los Angeles ownership group. That is a Los Angeles ownership group. So for them to be staying in Los Angeles at this point in time, and for them to be able to have a championship pedigree with baseball, not to mention Magic has his hands everywhere. He's won in baseball. He's won with your Commanders. He is a proven winner. And you're going to see his face a hell of a lot more, because guess what? With him being a part of that group, you can best believe they're going to trot him out there and say, hey, he's going to be one of the faces of change at this point.
You know, Magic, you know he loves himself some Lakers. You know he loves himself some Jeanie Buss. And obviously, I would know, because look at the job he's doing with the Commanders right now. Last year, we just went to the NFC Championship game, and we still hungry. And Magic is not satisfied from that NFC Championship game. I know he wants us to do some bigger things in order for us to get to where we want to go. But this is huge, champ. I'm happy for you, because even though you live in Columbus, Georgia, of course, you are a die-hard Lakers fan. But the thing is, how is LeBron going to work with the new owner? Because we know LeBron, he's talked about it before. After he's done playing, he does want to own a team one day.
To be honest with you, I said this before the ownership group even took over. I think they need to move off of it. I mean, it's time to move on. After the bubble, he brought back a championship. We thank you. But it's been a lot of patchwork done. It's a lot of patchwork. And if you know new ownership like I know new ownership, they do not mess with the whole patchwork system. They're trying to get the old out of there and get the new in so they can build the team in their image. And I think Luka is the perfect building block for this new ownership. I think Luka is the perfect building block. So I really think now he's going to have to get in shape, because like I said, there's been a lot of superstar players over the course of the LA Dodger history since the Guggenheim Group took over, and they've moved off of them. You name the player, they've moved off of them when it didn't seem like they was going anywhere fast. So Luka has to get in shape. I think they should go ahead and move off LeBron. And
have you seen him lately? Have you seen the photos of Luka?
Yeah, he's lost a lot, and I'm darn proud of him. Hey, you're trying. Look, new ownership group comes in. You're up for this Supermax deal. It's time. You're up for this Supermax deal. I'm not paying you to go out there and, you got to put your businessman hat on. Although, we know that you can play at a high level when you're not necessarily in the greatest shape. The new ownership is not going to pay you to do that. Like I said, this new ownership group doesn't play around. You see how they operate the Dodgers. So you're going to see a lot of changes within the Lakers. You're going to see the OG group there. But you can best believe behind the scenes, the Guggenheim Group and Mark Walter is going to make his presence felt. And overall, I'm glad that it went to a group where Magic is there. Magic is going to be part of Los Angeles once again. He's going to be part of Los Angeles as far as the Lakers once again, especially after how he was ousted and how he ended up leaving the organization when he was the president of basketball operations. He said that there was a little bit of controversy and a little bit of back and forth between him and Rob Pelinka. I'm interested to see how far amends and what amends are going to be made at that point. We all know that there was never any friction between him and Jeanie Buss, but between him and some of the front office members, there was a lot of friction that caused Magic Johnson to say, hey, I got to get up out of here. So it's going to be interesting, the healing process that is. But overall, I don't think that Jeanie Buss, Jim Buss, and the rest of the Buss family, and this is no disrespect to them because they did win a championship. during the bubble championship, which was not an easy championship to win.
Right.
But they didn't have the cachet. They didn't have the charisma. They didn't have the wherewithal and the know-how like Dr. Buss did. And that's what proved to be the beginning of the end of this era. If you ask me, the beginning of the end wasn't when they signed this contract with the Guggenheim Group and Mark Walter. That was not the end. The beginning of the end of the Los Angeles Lakers, as we knew it, as OG fans knew them, was when Dr. Buss passed away.
2013, yes.
That was the beginning of the end. And it was just like a spiral just came from that. Now, like I said, we was able to win another championship and tie and end up tying for a short period of time our arch rivals, the Boston Celtics. You know, we had the same amount of championships before they ended up winning another one.
Right.
But it wasn't that same aura that we once had. When you look back on Laker history, when you think about Dr. Buss, you think about how aggressive he was, how aggressive him in the front office was, not just in drafting, but in free agency, how aggressive they were in getting stars. People always talk about Magic and Kareem, but they don't realize how much of a super team that the 80s group was. At one point, they had Kareem, they had Norm Nixon, they had Kurt Ramage, Bob McAdoo, who was a two-time MVP himself. Not to mention Showtime 2.0 when they drafted AC Green, they drafted James Worthy. They was able to draft Byron Scott. They was able to do that. They was able to maneuver themselves. Even before Kobe and Shaq, they had a good young group. They had Eldon Campbell, Lottie Divac, Nick DeQuick, Nick Van Exel. They had Eddie Jones. That's what the original Buss administration was doing. They was able to get Shaq in free agency because they had something that they can say, hey, we got a good team.
I thought Shaq was traded.
No, he was a free agent.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was a huge free agent. I mean, my mother, the reason I'm a Laker fan is because of my mother. I never forget when he left the Orlando Magic. I remember she damn near flew with she damn near put a hole in the roof. Because that's how he although she did not like
I believe you, champ. I mean, hell, you told me the story. I don't want to reveal your business. You told me how much you had to help out your mom with them shoes.
Yeah, so. But she, although she loved the Cowboys, she loves herself some Lakers. So there's a lot of look, when you think about the Buss administration, you think about big trades. Although it was vetoed, you think about the Chris Paul trade.
Yeah, Commissioner Stern had to interfere.
And how aggressive they were with that. Even the Dwight Howard trade and how aggressive they were with that. So
I like it. I like it for the Lakers, champ. This is great for you. And I agree with you on the point. The beginning of the end was when, unfortunately, Dr. Buss passed away. And the worst part for the Lakers was Jim Buss, the son. How the way he ran the organization, champ. I mean, some of the bad moves that he made at the time.
Yes, and one of the most terrible moves that he made was letting Andrew Bynum stick around too long. Because he was just determined, because that was his draft pick. He was determined to make Andrew Bynum work in Los Angeles. And unfortunately, everybody was seeing the writing on the wall except for him at a certain point. Everybody saw the writing on the wall except for him. And like I said, Jeannie Buss, pretty lady, by the way, beautiful woman, by the way, she did everything that she could to maintain that franchise. She did everything that she could to maintain it and keep it in Dr. Buss's image. Unfortunately, there was not the right personnel around. And look, another beginning of the end was when Jerry West left. We talked about that this past Tuesday. That was another beginning of the end when he was ousted. God rest his soul. Because guess what? All of those players that I mentioned earlier, Guess who went and got him? Jerry West.
Jerry West.
So when you think about Jerry West's departure, when you think about Dr. Buss passing away, when you think about Mitch Kupchak, him not being a part of that organization anymore, although he did great things during the Kobe days. When you think about those three dominoes that fell, those were the beginning of the era.
Especially the Paul Gasol trade.
Yes, especially the Pau Gasol trade. So when you think about, and he was able to get Ron Artest, he was able to.
Metta World Peace, who was a big contributor, particularly in Game 7 in the NBA Finals when he hit that big time three. And remember how he met Kobe, which we will not reveal.
Yeah. And so a lot of great things happened during the Buss administration. Unfortunately, a lot of dominoes fell in order for this to have to happen. Like I said, the departure of Jerry West, the death of Dr. Buss, the departure of Mitch Kupchak, the Jim Buss administration, which was a flat out joke. I mean, at one point, there was 1 million free agents in free agency, and we could not get not one of them. We didn't have any stability. And I think that although they may deny it, I think that took a toll on this franchise during those Jim Buss years, because us having Robert Sacre as an attraction, us getting Carlos Boozer too long, going to get Jeremy Lin after it was way too late. I mean, those moves, I mean, not to mention Timothy Maskoff, getting him after he won the NBA championship, then signing Luol Deng to that big, huge contract. The mistakes that the Jim Buss administration made was flat out a joke. It was just, you looked at that administration as a fan and said you had to have learned something from your father, because this is not it. And it took them a long time to get that done and get that administration up out of there before Jeannie finally took over. And like I said, she did a good job considering the circumstances, considering how far her brother Jim put her behind. Because he really put her behind the 8 ball. So it took
not to mention the Mike D'Antoni hiring.
Yes, that was very, very interesting. I mean, because it was flat out mutiny in that locker room because they refused to run the offense. And Kobe said that we're not going to win games like that. So there was a lot of mistakes made on the new Buss administration that was not conducive and not of the original Buss administration. And I think that is why we're seeing them being sold today, because they're seeing you need big money and you need deep pockets to pay these mega contracts. The mom and pop stores are over with at this point. You need big money. You need big time contracts. You need that one thing where you to attract those free agents that are gonna be trying to head to Los Angeles. And you had to understand this. You just couldn't sell Los Angeles for being Los Angeles anymore, because this is the social media days. There was a time that you could sell New York on being New York. You could sell Los Angeles on being Los Angeles. Now it's the social media days. You can blow up at any time. Funny thing about Shaq, he was a huge star before he got there. When he got to Los Angeles, he became a megastar.
He did rap albums, you saw him on commercials, and he was successful himself. Before he went to LA, he went to a finals. He was competing. He was considered one of the elite big men in the game. There was him, Olajuwon, David Robinson. But champ, I'm really happy for your Lakers, because with the Buss family, it was time to move on. Somebody had to go. And I was having a conversation with some of the guys on the barbershop. Isn't this like a pattern, Chip? Because Mark Cuban sold the team. The Boston Celtics, they sold the team. The Lakers, they sold the team. And we talked about how the NBA, the lack of ratings, compared to the NFL, because a lot of times we talked about the NFL, they're the king of headlines. We talked about the Christmas ratings and how the NFL cleared the NBA as far as with the ratings, champ. I think that could play a factor, but again, that's speculation. But I also think you mentioned this point, champ. The beginning of the end for the Lakers was Dr. Buss passing away.
Yes.
And when Jim Buss took over the team, train wreck. And you look at the Mike D'Antoni hiring, which was another step for the beginning of the end. Because Jeanie Buss, who was engaged to Phil Jackson at the time, they wanted Phil to be the head coach. Even Dwight Howard, when he was with Los Angeles, he wanted Phil to be the head coach of the team.
Yes.
And Jeanie Buss even wrote in her book, Laker Girl, that she felt, quote, stabbed in the back when they hired Mike D'Antoni. And Mike D'Antoni is for up-tempo, but again, that was a relatively old roster. Kobe was 34 at the time. Pau Gasol was in his 30s. Metta World Peace was in his 30s. So Mike D'Antoni with that type of offense, it would work if you had younger guys, but an older roster, no. And then you couldn't be able to get free agents. And then the free agent, the NBA draft picks. D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram. Do you know all those guys, they developed and flourished once they departed from Los Angeles, champ?
Yes, and to this day, a lot of Laker fans will say, had they kept that team together and gave them some stability, rather than trading all of those picks in order to get, Anthony Davis, we'd be in a lot better position right now. Granted, you always want to win a championship when you're in Los Angeles. You always are joyful and you're grateful. And you thank God in order for you to win a championship in Los Angeles, because one thing Los Angeles loves is a winner. And Los Angeles loves a winner. But the thing is, you can't keep doing this at the expense of the future. I don't think they had to. There was a lot of things that goes into it. I think that not having Jerry West definitely played a part in there, not having the talent and things of that nature in there.
Mitch Kupchak too.
Mitch Kupchak.
Losing Mitch Kupchak. People, we talk about Jerry West, champ, but Mitch Kupchak is a prodigy of Jerry West. And he was the one who pulled off the Kwame Brown trade for Paul Gasol that did lead the Lakers to 3 consecutive finals appearances with 2 championships. Yeah. So there are a lot of things with the Lakers that you looked at. What are you missing? And I think, and Stephen A., he mentioned this several times. Look, I know Stephen A. Smith is not the most likable figure, but back in them days in First Take, he talked about Jim Buss. He never accused Jim Buss of not knowing basketball. What he accused Jim Buss of was his ego. And even Magic Johnson talked about it. He even talked about it when he made an appearance on First Take back in 2015. And Jeanie, I think it was a tough decision. Even though $10 billion, that's if anyone offered us $10 billion, of course, we would take the money, of course. But a part of her felt like it was tough because of her father. Her father purchased the team for $67.5 million back in 1979.
Yes.
And look where they are right now. Second most in NBA championships, only behind the Boston Celtics. The rich history of superstars and stars. And that's what I think Jeanie had to come to the realization too. In order for the Lakers to be back to the glory days, I have to sell the team. And I have to give it to somebody in Mark Walter. Jeanie's still going to be a part of the organization. She's always going to be a part of that organization. And the Buss family, it says it right here. I'm reading an article here from Reuters. It says here, the Buss family will retain a minority share of just over 15% for a period of time after the deal, ESPN reported, bringing to a close its stewardship of a franchise that became synonymous with Hollywood allure and championship excellence. And the previous record for biggest sports deal was by the Boston Celtics, back in March, to be sold for $6.1 billion. So with Mark Walter with the Dodgers and with Magic Johnson, because Magic is going to be in on it, I think this is great for the Lakers, champ. You have something to still look forward to. As you mentioned, It's still in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, you still got the Dodgers. You still got the Lakers. The Clippers are they're not champion. I mean, the Clippers are still the Clippers, but still competitive. You got the Rams. So you got a lot of things to look forward to in Los Angeles. So you're going to be just fine.
Like I said, this trade, what am I talking about? This purchase, this sale is equivalent to Stephen Jones selling the Dallas Cowboys.
You mean Jerry?
Well, I don't see Jerry selling it. I really don't. I don't, unless they dig up every piece of gold that God can unearth. I don't see Jerry Jones, as long as he's breathing in and out, ever selling. But it's equivalent to me of Jerry Jones passing away. Not wishing that on Jerry Jones, but you know, like I said, he's an older guy. He's almost like 90 years old. But that's equivalent to him passing away, and years down the line, Stephen Jones saying, I can't do this no more. That's equivalent to the Steinbrenner family selling the New York Yankees. When you think about families,
or Jim Dolan stepping away from the Knicks,
that doesn't count. I don't count.
No, champ. If Jim Dolan sells the New York Knicks, can you imagine how many New York Knicks fans would be ecstatic if he sold the team, given how he's run the organization for 2.5 decades? Come on, champ, you know that.
I understand what you're saying as far as that, but we're talking about legacy, charisma.
I understand the legacy part
and history of winning. I mean, even when you think about Mark Davis, if he was to sell the Raiders right about now, although they haven't won in some years, you would think about family legacy. When you think about
the Kraft family, Robert Kraft giving it to his son or a daughter, and then they say, you know what, we'll sell the team to somebody else.
Yes. When you think about the Buss family, when you think about family legacies, you think about the Steinbrenners, you think about the Jones family, you think about the Buss family, you think about the Krafts at this moment at least. You think about those type of families that have a legacy in sports. I know I'm missing another family that's in sports, but you know, you think, well, excuse me, the Lamar Hunt family for the Kansas City Chiefs. It'll be equivalent to one of those families selling the team, because when you look at it, their legacy is so wrapped up in those teams. When you talk about Steinbrenner, you automatically think the Yankees. When you think about Jerry Jones, you automatically think the Cowboys. When you think about Lamar Hunt, you automatically think the Kansas City Chiefs. And when you think about the Buss family, you automatically think the Los Angeles Lakers. And when you think about Al Davis and the Davis family, you think about the Raiders. So when you think of that, them selling the team is equivalent to Steinbrenner's family selling the team, is equivalent to the Jones family selling the Cowboys, is equivalent to the Lamar Hunt family saying we're selling the Kansas City Chiefs, because those are legacy families. And when you think about it, those are not corporate entities. These are family businesses. I mean, I'll never forget what Jerry Jones told Stephen and his daughter when he first bought the Cowboys. He told them, you might want to pay attention, because this is your trust fund that we're talking about. This team, these millions of dollars that I've invested from being an oil tycoon, this is your trust fund. So when you think about the selling of the Lakers from the Buss family and it going over to a corporate entity like Mark Walter and the Guggenheim Group, it is the end of an era. And that puts an end to some of the family-owned teams in sports. And it's slowly disappearing, because a lot of the old owners have transitioned and given it up to big-time corporations. Even Mark Cuban to a certain extent, although he wasn't an owner for very, very long. When you think about the Dallas Mavericks, you think about
you think about him. Yeah. And I think that played a role. But do you also think, champ, where the NBA is, the ratings, because we've talked about it numerous times on the show, do you think the owner saw something? Hey, let's just sell the team so that way we can get our money, step away from the family business?
I think, look, ratings are always going to be a big issue when it comes to basketball because your season starts in the heart of football season. That's the thing. I don't think you really have to be a hardcore fan of basketball in order for you to want to pay attention during the middle of football season. You really have to be a hardcore fan. And now that, let's just face it, the NFL is infringing on their territory at this point, it's going to be even harder. Look at my bad. Go ahead.
No, this Pitch guy, he said, Pitch Pod. By the way, go like and subscribe to the Pitch Grid Pod.
Yes.
Look at English soccer. There's betting companies and sports washing happening. Yeah, very fair point.
Yeah. When you think about the NFL infringing on the NBA's territory, when you think about the Christmas game, the Thanksgiving games, I mean, the NFL season goes all the way up to February. College football goes all the way up damn near to the same as the Super Bowl. You know, it's kind of hard to keep up with the NBA. It's kind of hard to get storylines. So you really have to be watching it and be a watcher in order to pay attention to everything. Funny thing about it, when we're in the middle of the NFL season, you can attest to this, although the NBA starts off in like September, October, we're still covering everything in the NFL, although, you know, teams get off these very fast.
That's a fact. No, that's a fact. Absolutely, Chad, because usually the basketball season, it doesn't start until late October.
Yes.
Probably somewhere around Thanksgiving. Probably somewhere around Halloween. It doesn't even start until like around Halloween. But we still talk about the NFL because November, that's when the NFL games start to heat up, especially them Thanksgiving games. And of course, we're going to be tuned in to watch the Thanksgiving games and then the Christmas games. As we mentioned, Champ, the Netflix. Remember, one game, particularly the Ravens and the Texans. Lamar Jackson, who was the runner-up for the MVP, going up against the Houston Texans. And on top of that, to add icing to the cake, who'd you have performing at the halftime show? None other than Beyonce.
Yes.
So it does help. And then, of course, you get your ratings. I think there's a culmination of things. The Buss family decided to sell the team because, you know what? I think we've had enough. Let's move on. We're not going to get that far as long as we still remain ownership of the Lakers. Let's hand it down to somebody else who knows exactly a thing or two of what they're doing. And Magic is still going to be there. We all know Magic Johnson loves the Lakers. And I don't know how Magic does it at his age, man. I mean, because Magic Johnson, we all know the basketball player, but the entrepreneur, the 24-hour fitness centers, the Burger Kings, the Starbucks. I mean, he's a part of the Washington Commanders. They're doing good things. They're in the right direction. Thank God. I mean, I'm sorry, I digress because of it still amazes me to this day that we finally moved on from Dan Snyder, but I digress. But for the Lakers, Champ, you have a future. At least you have somebody who's going to be there and say, I'm going to do what I can to keep the Lakers of competing. Now, do I think the Lakers will be what they were with Dr. Buss? No, I don't think that. But I think it's something that you can be proud of. I think it's something that you can still support, still expect, still going to get your money's worth. And I do see championships as long as you have the right ingredients put in place. And of course, Pitch Grid Pod mentioned too, Shaq too, entrepreneur, no doubt about that. Yes. But I think for the Lakers, champ, you have more than something to be proud of, man. And for Jeannie, she's still gonna be there. But I really love it for the Lakers. You got something to look forward to, man. You really have something to look forward to.
Yes, indeed. And I'm glad that it's over. That old school Laker aura is kind of over. And another thing, you talked about the ratings. I think that a lot of these Supermax contracts played a role in them selling the teams as well. Because when you think about these contracts, eventually, I believe that outside of MLB, I believe that the I believe truly that a basketball player is going to end up signing in $1 billion contract. I truly believe that. Not to mention, you talked about the ratings. There's no mega star in the league right now, as far as who's going to take over for LeBron. When Michael left, you at least had Shaq. You had Kobe. You had a lot of other players. When Shaq and those players left, you still had LeBron, you still had Bosh, you still had D Wade, Derrick Rose, just to name a few. Us transitioning into the new era, you don't have that mega star, that super mega star that's going to be on everybody's TV screen. The NBA doesn't have a Michael Jordan at this point that is going to take the league into the stratosphere and just put the league on its back. So I think that is a concern about a lot of these franchises that are selling their teams. It's like, we're not these players that are coming in, they're not the mega stars of previous years. And even on the basketball court, if they are mega stars on the basketball court, like, Luka, like Jokic, even Giannis, guys like that, they're not outspoken guys that is going to garner a lot of attention. They're not the American superstars that we saw in previous years. So I think that was a concern as well.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that because our guy Dwayne Coleman, shout out to Dwayne. He said, "I want to ask y'all. They want LeBron to retire so bad, but who's going to be the face of the league after LeBron retired? We don't know who. I mean,
we're searching, we're fishing like hell.
Plus, they want to make Anthony Edwards the face of the NBA, but he's made it clear he doesn't want to be that. We don't know about with Ja Morant because of obviously
off the field stuff.
Off the
but
court
that's
stuff.
the thing. But that's the thing. You don't know. At least when Michael left, you had a super big star who was in the entertainment capital of the world in the form of Shaquille O'Neal. You had Kobe, who was, one of the best wingmen in the league at that point in time. You had an Allen Iverson. You had an Allen. You had a Tim Duncan. You had mega stars that you didn't have to depend on one face of the league. You had so many mega stars that you could, put the camera on either one of them and you could sell tickets. There's not that one mega star that I'm going to go broke in order to take my girlfriend in order to see. I don't have one, by the way, but that's what people are going to say. I don't have that one guy that I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go out here and take out a big old loan. I'm going to take my girlfriend to see courtside seat tickets in order to see this person. There's not that one guy that you just have to see. And I think the league is missing that. And like I said, they're going to milk the LeBron train for as long as they can. I think that in the minute that he retires, it's going to be the biggest probably send-off in the world. It's going to be bigger probably than Michael Jordan's because I believe he's going to have a true farewell tour. But you don't have that one guy that everybody is going to say, or a bunch of guys like you had in the early 2000s that everybody is going. There's so many questions around it. There's so many questions around Tyrese Halliburton. There's so many questions around SGA. There's so many questions around Jokic. There's so many questions around all of these players, including Anthony Edwards, that you just don't know who that next face is going to be. And so with that going on, with the ratings going on, with these super mega contracts, and I don't think we've mentioned this, how the NBA is being freaking covered now by these major media news networks. They're not covered the way they once were.
I don't think they're doing a good job, champ.
No.
If I'm gonna be factual, like, look, I'm sorry, I don't want to bring them up, but when I listen to certain analysts, like particularly ESPN's Kendrick Perkins, like when it comes to like the basketball takes that he gives, I mean, I'm sorry, it's just not good. And plus, we've talked about this before with Stephen A. Smith and the integrity part. I mean, there's just not enough coverage. And we've talked about how ESPN, how at one point it used to be there, but nowadays it's just declined.
Yes. the way that sports is covered as far as the NFL, you don't have to bring drama into it. You don't have to bring drama. There's enough drama for it to go around just on the field. I don't, and the way that, if you look at the way that the WNBA is covered, that's exactly the way they're covering the NBA at this point. Yesterday, we had the finals going on, and we talked about this on Tuesday on your pod, PSP. Remember how, Stephen A was talking about the crime in Memphis, and we have the NBA finals going on. We have the Giannis, watch going on. We have all of this stuff going on as far as free agency is going on. You have these big trades that are going on. And the main thing that you're talking about is crime in Memphis. The way that the game has been covered as far as the old school guys and transition to the new school guys. When you thought about Ahmad Rashad, when you thought about Stuart Scott, when you thought about Marv Albert, they were strictly basketball analysts. You knew you were going to get a story. You knew who was the MVP, who was the leading MVP candidate coming into the season. You knew who was the leading Rookie of the Year candidate. You had Rookie of the Year watches. You had, Comeback Player of the Year watches. You had Most Improved Player watches for the Sixth Man of the Year. The way that the sports networks are covering the NBA right about now, they're trying to infuse as much drama as they can into it. And unlike the other sports, it's like, no, that's not what we want to see. We want to see you cover the NBA and the W, by the way, and the WNBA, like you cover the NFL. We want to see sports storylines. We want to see who's competing for the awards, who's the team to watch. And unfortunately, they're not covering it like that anymore. They're covering it, trying to make it like the Real World or the Housewives of Atlanta at this point. And that's what's turning off a lot of hardcore fans like myself. And I think that's another contribution to why Jeanie Buss may have sold the team, because they're not covering the NBA the way they were doing it back 20 years ago.
Yeah, not only that, champ, and we talked about it with the WNBA. At some point in time, it can't always just be about controversy. Not saying that controversy doesn't sell, but if you continuously look at just pay attention to controversy, yet disregard the talent in the game, how is that going to contribute the brand of basketball? And with Stephen, and perhaps, champ, you mentioned a stat about the ratings from game one between Indiana and Oklahoma City. The most, the lowest?
Yes, the lowest since 1988, since they started keeping track of the ratings.
Isn't that an indication of how ESPN and other networks are covering it? Because it can't just be about small markets. Okay. And we talked about Indiana. That, as you mentioned, that is a diehard basketball state. Them and North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma, you have something exciting to talk about, because with Oklahoma, of course, you mentioned the Seattle Supersonics franchise. Seattle fans want to see Oklahoma City lose so that they can crown themselves Seattle the real team, not Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But when you think of Oklahoma City, even though it's not a big market itself, and you really think more of it's football because Oklahoma, Texas, the OU Sooners, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, but still something to look forward to. We could talk more about Sam Presti, one of the brightest young executives. I mean, look at the job, the accumulation of picks that he's had throughout his career, and what he's going to do even more. You talked about the dynasty, the potential dynasty with all those draft picks he's accumulated. We could talk about all those things, but it seems to me, champ, the way that media and sports have covered it is just a damn shame. And I'm glad that Tuesday we talked more about the WNBA. We talked about Defisha Collier, about her winning the MVP. The season ended today. She should win the MVP, WNBA MVP, in my opinion. We did talk about Caitlin Clark, her having that monster game, that 32-point game against the New York Liberty, giving the New York Liberty their first loss. And by the way, the New York Liberty lost to a damn good team last night in the Phoenix Mercury, who will face the Chicago Sky tomorrow afternoon. It's on ABC. Please go check it out. But again, champ, it's a shame that you and I mean, even though, look, I got my over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I don't like bragging about that type of stuff. And we all know you doing your thing. Isn't it a damn shame that we are talking about this stuff, and instead of ESPN and other major networks not talking about this stuff, I mean, it's a complete disservice.
Yes, it is. And I think that's why the NBA wanted to go back to NBC so that they could get those storylines. Remember, look, I remember the NBA on NBC before every single game. I'm not talking about just the NBA finals. Before every single game, even in the regular season, Bob Costas told you a WWE-like build-up story right before the game. Bob Costas used to bring you in with those stories right before. If y'all don't believe it, to all the non-believers out there, in the great words of Stan Lee, the late great Stan Lee, non-believers, please go and watch the old school NBA on NBC. Before each and every single game, Bob Costas had a story about the game, about the build-up. It was almost WWE-esque. It was a build-up. I'm talking about this is a regular season game. Now, when the playoff came, he turned it up.
And Ahmad Rashad, especially with them interviews that he got.
Yes, well, I love this game. Look, basketball was about basketball back then. I love this game, inside stuff. That was what it was about. And I think that was, and not to mention another thing that's working against the NBA right now, you just took away your star flagship show. The NBA on TV. You just took away your best show that everybody was paying attention to. And how ironic, it had another big time show had to leave the Turner networks. So you just lost your big time show who was concentrated on basketball. They might sprinkle a little drama here and there because drama sells in sports, but they kept it about basketball. So the thing is, it is the same that content creators like myself, like you, like Brandon from the Block, like BRF, like Flash, like Hot Take Kenny, all casual. Of them, and especially casual, the subject matter expert. I mean,
you want to know basketball, talk to him, especially X's and O's, all those other things. You better go check out Casual because he does a hell of a job. And same thing with Luis, because when it comes to wrestling, I want to listen to what Luis has to say regarding wrestling stuff. But again, man, it's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast stuff, because again, I'm tired of hearing the same thing over and over again from other media. When we talk about this,
then the GOAT debate. No, the GOAT debate, every time you look around, the GOAT debate is always, we're going to talk about the GOAT debate. We just talked about this shit. Excuse me. We just talked about this.
It's all good.
We just talked about this stuff last week. How many GOAT conversations are you going to have in one lifetime?
Because to them, I think they've gotten complacent. That's what it seems to me, champ. The more the money that they're making, the more of the type of stuff that they're doing, they've gotten complacent and they've lost touch with the fans, because us fans, we just want to talk about the sport, the game, and everything else. I mean, does controversy work from time to time? Sure, but not all the time. We want to hear something that's refreshing. I mean, shit, we don't want to eat the same meal over and over again. I mean, champ, I understand you on your weight loss health regimen. Sally, you gonna tell me one time you're not gonna have a good piece of chicken with some mashed potatoes and some mac and cheese on the side and some collard greens? No, you want to have that.
It's chicken and rice now, but we ain't gonna go ahead. It's chicken and rice, not necessarily salads right about now. But you have to your point, man, joke or no joke, that's what it is. And my thing is this, with these GOAT debates, him always beefing with LeBron, it gets old. And the thing you have to ask yourself another thing you have to ask yourself is this: did the NBA and a lot of these sports shows, well, I will say just the NBA, because when you hear football players talk about each other, it's glowingly, it's done. It is like crazy. It's like they are unbiased. Even Tom Brady, when he's talking about his Patriots, when he's talking about his Raiders, is very, very unbiased. Do you think that having the former NBA players, as far as being commentators, do you think that has become a double-edged sword as well?
I think so. Because I mean, to let go of Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith, Shaq, even though sometimes I may not always agree with their takes, but to hear their perspective, considering the fact that they're proven commodities, two of them are Hall of Famers, Charles Barkley and Shaq, and sometimes they give constructive criticism. I think but why let them go? Because is it because the players? Because again, a lot of times, a lot of the younger players don't like hearing what Shaq and Chuck particularly have to say.
It's not what you want to hear, it's what you need
What
to
you
hear.
need to hear.
It's like, look, people outside in TV land, listen, it's not what you want to hear all the time, it's what you need to hear. And if I have somebody like Shaq telling me, hey man, you got to step up your game, it's Shaq. He had to step up his game. Although he went to the finals, although he won the scoring title, although he was an MVP candidate, he knows how to win and he knows how to lose. You can't be so sensitive to the fact that if someone scratch you, then bugs fly off you. Don't be so sensitive. If somebody who has the ability of a Shaquille O'Neal, the ability of a Charles Barkley, and the championship pedigree of the Kenny the Jet Smith, then listen. I understand y'all making millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, but guess what? You can learn something still. And it's Shaq. Not only can he teach you something in basketball, he can teach you a few things in business. I learned this from my father. Don't let your ego be so big that you miss out on an opportunity to learn something. Because somebody could be telling you something simple to see how you're going to respond. And then they could be hiding the recipe to make you billions of dollars in their back pocket. But because you didn't respond to that first lesson, well, they're like, nah, I ain't going to deal with that. Because you didn't listen to the first constructive criticism. Don't take advice from anybody. Don't take criticism to people who you wouldn't take advice from. In order to be great, you mean to tell me you wouldn't take advice from Shaq? If you don't take advice from Shaq on how to be a great basketball player, on how to win, on how to come back from being a finals loser to Akeem Olajuwon to becoming a 4-time champion and a league MVP and to win a finals MVP 3 straight times, if you don't listen to that, and he did it while he was out of shape. He wasn't even in shape his entire career, and he did that.
That should tell you something.
That should tell you everything you need to know. I did it, and I wasn't even at my best. I wasn't even at my absolute premium, and I still went out there and dominated every single thing.
And that's the thing. Yeah. And Kobe even got on Shaq all the time for being fat and out of shape, but Shaq still delivered. But the thing is, do I think players nowadays are too sensitive? Yes, because when they hear the criticism from guys like Shaquille O'Neal, from Charles Barkley, Hall of Famers themselves, they feel like, why are you picking on them and stuff like that? But at the same time, they're old school. They come from a different perspective. They don't come from the same era as a lot of the younger players are. They know what it takes and the requirements to be great. So if you don't listen to them, then essentially, what does that say about you? And Pitch Grid Pod said Shaq is the perfect example of how to dominate, even if he wasn't perfect. Grid mindset. And BRF, shout out to the great BRF. There hasn't been one truly stepped up to the throne. Shout out, guys. Sorry I couldn't come on. Be there next week, though. But regarding who's going to be the shout out to BRF. But regarding the face of the NBA champ, it's still up in the air. We don't know exactly who. I think it still could be Luka because of his swagger, his personality. I mean, and there are a lot of great basketball players, but we don't know who. Even Ant. A lot of people want Ant to be the face of the NBA because they talk about Kobe and Michael, and they can put him in these comparisons. And doesn't want to be mentioned with those guys. He doesn't want to be the face of the NBA. And Ja, again, the off the court situations. Okay, I can understand that. Wemby, and I like Wemby a lot, but we got to wait and see. Only time will tell. But champ, let's move on to that pigskin. Sooner or later, man, a couple of months, football is coming soon. The Baltimore Ravens, they landed Jair Alexander. Now, remember, he was the Packers. Correct me if I'm wrong, champ. They released him, and the Baltimore Ravens, they acquired him to a 1-year deal. He gets reunited with his former Louisville teammate Lamar Jackson. You pair him up with Marlon Humphrey, champ. I think this is something that the Baltimore Ravens needed for Jair Alexander to be in a new team, reunited with your old college teammate. Baltimore still in the conversation for the Super Bowl. Of course, they're coming off that devastating divisional round playoff loss to the Buffalo Bills. Lamar still at the prime of his career. He's only 28. Matter of fact, even though I had Josh Allen win the MVP, I'm still kind of shocked Lamar didn't win it. Matter of fact, you and BRF made the case MV3 for Lamar because the year that he was putting up those numbers, 40 something touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, first time over 4,000 yards, Aaron Rodgers-esque numbers. Todd Monken, your former Georgia Bulldog offensive coordinator, has done a magnificent job with Lamar. Derrick Henry, just a beast. And to pair Jair Alexander with Humphrey, with Kyle Hamilton, one of the best safeties we have in the NFL. And then, of course, you talked about it, champ, Roquan Smith, in which the Chicago Bears. I don't know how they gave up that trade, but hey.
Look, I'm still to this day, I try to look back and see what did he do. Because for you to trade your star linebacker for less than a first round pick, I'm still trying to figure out what was the problem there, because that was crazy. Because him and Khalil Mack, when they was there, they made a hell of a combination. They even got some playoffs his first year.
Yes. But I think for the Ravens, this is a really good look to get Jair Alexander. I think that the Ravens, they got to get at least to the conference championship game, man, because with Kansas City, I still have Kansas City. They're still going to be a playoff caliber team, but have they made any moves in the offseason that really stood out? No, they gave up Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears, and we expect Chicago to have a big time season. Travis Kelce Travis Kelce is still going to be there. Patrick Mahomes, I still believe in Patrick Mahomes, but the offensive line, there's still questions about that. And then when you look at the AFC West, as you mentioned, it's not going to be easy because Denver, that team, Bo Nix coming off the year that he had. And then with the Chargers, although Justin Herbert has a lot to prove, because we can't ignore that awful playoff performance he had against the Houston Texans, champ. He was horrible. He was horrible as you was the other day with your diet, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But he was just awful. But you said let's give him some grace because first year with Jim Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. So we gotta wait and see. And with the Raiders, we still gotta wait and see with the Raiders. But I like it for the Baltimore Ravens because it still keeps their playoff hopes alive, especially the AFC. I would love to see Baltimore, Buffalo again in the playoffs, only this time in the AFC Championship game. And I think for Lamar, and he knows that it's time. He was so furious after that playoff loss to the Buffalo Bills. You talked about it. You touched on it on the Hard Knocks episode, I think that was on. And Mark Andrews. I love me some Mark Andrews because obviously comes from one of my schools, OU. Had a disappointing game. And just like Lamar Jackson didn't show up, neither did Mark Andrews, particularly the 2-point conversion in which he dropped a crucial pass. I think for Baltimore, they gotta do it now. They gotta do it now. And Pitch Grid Pod, he says, I know it's slightly off topic, but is Lamar Vic 2.0 Yes, but a better passer early
Way
on. Way better passer. But let's not discount Michael Vick as a passer in Philadelphia, especially his first year. Especially the Monday Night Football game against my Commanders, in which he torched them that night. I'm still traumatized to this day. Pitch Grid Pod, they upgraded the O-line with Moore and Simmons. They got Fulton for a corner. And yes, the defense big time in the draft. And you talked about how the Ravens did an excellent job in the draft, champ. And BRF mentioned who is the X factor for the Ravens on defense this season.
Malachi Starks.
Malachi Starks, yeah, from your Georgia Bulldogs.
Malachi Starks. And look out for Mike White as well. They drafted him. He has some character issues, but, you know, there was some things out there about him prior to the draft. But they had, I think there's no other team under the gun right now more than the Baltimore Ravens. They had one hell of a draft. They did not lose a lot of players in free agency. They had a hell of a draft. They, in fact, next to the Cowboys, they won the NFL draft. Then and that's a big if, because Zaire, he's not washed. He's just been hurt. If he is 90% of what 80% of what he was in Green Bay, that secondary is going to be locked down. Not going to be able to pass. You have Justin Metabupe coming back. You have Raekwon Smith coming back. Kyle Hamilton, one of the best safeties in the league. So that secondary is going to be locked down. And this is Lamar another year with Todd Monken. How long is Todd Monken going to be there? You got to ask yourself that. So there's a lot of factors playing in favor for Baltimore at this point. There's a lot of factors playing because, number one, you drafted well. Your entire team is coming back. Your coaches are coming back. Your defense made strides at the end. Not only that, you have to look at your division at this point. The Steelers, do you really trust them with Aaron Rodgers? No, indeed not.
And we already know about Cleveland.
Cleveland, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Shedeur Sanders if he can stop playing bumper cars. If he can stop playing bumper cars and slow that car down, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Everybody has had a ticket. I had plenty of them. I'm just going to be real. It's just a speed ticket, no big deal, but still slow down. You don't want to get off to a bad start. Then Cincinnati, who, if they don't know how to do anything else, they know how to mess up a cup of coffee. They haven't signed Trey Hendrickson. They haven't signed their first-round draft pick, Stewart. And so the defense that they had that was last in the league is going to be even worse than it was. So in order for them to even survive a game, they're going to have Joe Burrow and that offense put up at least 100 points a game, which everybody knows in this league, your offense is not necessarily going to be on. They're going to have to beat Air Coryell 2.0 in order to win games. So you have your draft, your players returning, and that division that's in flux at this point. That's everything that you need. And in the great words of Dave Wanstead, who was a hell of a defensive coordinator and a good coach for the Miami Dolphins, the first step to winning the Super Bowl is winning your division, trying to clinch that first round by getting a home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So if you can do that, everything is in their favor. Everything is in their favor in order to get to a Super Bowl. It's just a matter of you getting there. Not to mention, you got to think about James Cook. He may not be with the Buffalo Bills this year because he's in a contract dispute with them. So the person who was their touchdown leader last year may not be with the Buffalo Bills. So there's a lot of things going in your favor to get you to the Super Bowl. You just have to come out there and execute. But you have to execute. There ain't no, in the great words of Major Payne, they're not just going to go out there and hand it to you. They ain't finna hand it to you. you're going to have to go out there and earn it. And you may have to end up going on the road in order to face Kansas City.
Or Buffalo.
So everything is going in your favor as far as Lamar Jackson, as far as the coaching and everything. But I do believe that window is closing fast because guess what? After this year, you don't know what Derrick Henry is going to be. I think Derrick Henry has one more great year in it. Great. I'm talking about, I think he's going to be magnificent again this year. But at the same time, how long are you going to have him at that premium that you had him at last year? Remember
which is why Baltimore, they're going to get a running back.
Yeah. Remember, there were some questions about him coming in this year of did the Tennessee Titans run him into the ground? So the window is closing. But today, the window is closing. But today, as far as Baltimore Ravens is concerned, it's wide open. You can drive a pickup truck through that window. It's wide open. Your division is not that good. Your draft was great. Everything is going in your favor. All your coaches came in back. You have not lost any key pieces. In fact, you gained a lot. But you got to execute this year. If they do not win it this year, I don't think they're ever going to. And that is the hottest take I'm probably ever going to have. If Baltimore does not win it this year with a very, very weak division, with all of these great players they have on their team coming back, with the great draft that they had, the pass rushers, the offense, if they do not do this year, I don't think they're ever going to.
And then you also got to ask yourself this question, because we talked about with Mike Tomlin. At some point in time, do you move on from John Harbaugh? If you're Baltimore.
No. He's went to NFC championship games. AFC championship games. He's went to playoff games. He's won playoff games. It's not with John Harbaugh, it's not this cycle of mediocrity.
No, champ. I'm not saying that he's mediocre like Tomlin, but you have a window. For now, it looks great, but you don't know how long it's going to be there. If Baltimore, do you have to start fresh?
No. I think that you stick with the same team, but the thing is, unlike Mike Tomlin, when it was time to get rid of the offensive coordinator because he wasn't necessarily a good fit for Lamar Jackson, he got rid of him and got Todd Monken.
Right.
He went and got players to complement Lamar Jackson, them in the front office. They didn't just wait around and just let things fall in their lap like the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing at this point. And like I said, they was not in this stuck in place mentality that the Pittsburgh Steelers are in. Like I said, they went to an NFC championship just the year before last. They've been in the playoffs. They've won playoff games. They haven't necessarily been to a Super Bowl as of yet with Lamar Jackson. But Harbaugh, he's been to a few AFC championships with Flacco. Matter of fact, I think he went to like 2-3 in a row with Flacco.
He went to one in 2008 in Flacco's rookie year. 2011, they lost to New England. The Lee Evans drop pass and the missed field goal.
Yeah.
The following year, they went back to the AFC Championship game where they beat down the Patriots, went to the Super Bowl, and beat the San Francisco 49ers. And they went to the playoffs in 2014. They lost to the Patriots in the divisional round. And then they went to the playoffs in 2018, lost to the Chargers. 2019, they lost to the Tennessee Titans in the divisional round. That was when Lamar won the MVP unanimously, and they had the number 1 seed. They beat Tennessee the following year in 2020, but then they lost to Buffalo in the divisional round. They missed the playoffs in 2021. They lost to Cincinnati in the wild card. Remember, Lamar Jackson did not play in that game. That was Tyler Humphrey.
Yeah. They was in a contract dispute.
Yep. 2023, they lost an AFC Championship game to Kansas City. and then last year they lost to Buffalo.
Yeah,
But it's
after
time.
beating the Steelers. So they've won some playoff games there. They're not just stuck in this patchwork. I'm gonna patch it up for the year, and then we're gonna go to the playoffs, and we're gonna just
No. It's not like that, champ. But at the same time, it's time. You made all these moves in the offseason with the draft. You got yourself another cornerback, and you've done a really good job with the offseason. And plus, as we mentioned, the AFC North, we talked about it with Aaron Rodgers. I'll say it again. I'm trying to go for Lotto. I'm trying to go for Jennifer Lopez. I'm trying to go for Salma Hayek. I end up getting Mariah Mills. That's what I get. I want a full course meal. I want a filet mignon, and all I got is potty meat. That's all I got with Aaron Rodgers at this point. Cleveland can't. I mean, look, Shedeur Sanders. I mean, look, he got busted for driving 101 miles per hour on a 60 mile per hour limit. Look, he's young. We've all made mistakes before, but again, he was drafted in the 5th round. So there's no guarantee that he's going to stay on the 53-man roster. So he's got to do everything he can to compete and work his ass off to keep that roster. I think he'll be okay. And with the Bengals, champ, look, it's Mike Brown, the owner. We know how cheap he is as an owner.
Very cheap.
So
super cheap.
Yeah.
And like I said, that whole fiasco with not only his star defensive player, but the defensive player that you got to replace him, he's not even signed. It gets ridiculous after a while.
The only thing the Bengals have done right in the offseason was with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Because you mentioned before, if I'm Joe Burrow and I lose both of those targets, I retire. And then somebody else is going to have to pick me up. That's what you can endorsed or recommended.
I mean, and I wouldn't blame him if he did it now, because the thing is, with that T. Higgins contract, that's really a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
It's really a 1-year deal. So if they deem you if they want to be super cheap again next year and say, we're going to cut you after this year, they can most certainly do that. That's how team friendly that contract is. That's why they kill me when they say team friendly. Okay, we want to be cheap. Let's go ahead and cut him so he can go somewhere else. But yeah, that's a team friendly deal. It's really not one of these mega monster deals that you're really, really thinking about. You know, I know the number sounds real, real good, 100-something million, but it's really one of those deals where it's year to year. It's like, we're going to evaluate you after this year. We're going to evaluate you after this year. So that's what that is, if you really want me to be honest with you.
Can't blame you on that, man. All right. Now for my favorite topic on the Sports PSP podcast, babyface or heel. Now, for those who may not know what babyface heel means in wrestling terminology, babyface means good guy hero. Heel means a bad guy villain, and a tweener is someone in between babyface. So I came up with a list of athletes or celebrities, and me and Champ, we're going to decide whether they are a babyface, heel, or tweener. Now, the first person, Scottie Pippen.
Heel. I have to say he's a heel.
Okay.
The thing is, and here's why. You are one of the top 75 players of all time. And Jordan has admitted and said on record, without Scottie, I don't win championships. When you mention me, you need to mention Scottie. And he just came out in recent years on a smear campaign against Michael Jordan. They even went on a little world tour. They called it the No Bull Tour.
Let's not forget the other controversy regarding them too.
Yeah.
But I think you know exactly what I'm referring to.
There was a lot of controversy with that. But as far as sports is concerned, we should remember him for more. But the thing is, I mean, and we've seen reunions between him and Michael Jordan before. You know, him meeting up at a Bulls game back when Derrick Rose was playing. You know, him going in the skybox with Jordan, him hugging, singing Kumbaya, hallelujah. So we've seen them, you know, interact before. But for some reason, after the Last Dance, it was like he just took offense. And the thing is, nothing that they covered in the Last Dance about you was it true. It was true.
The 1.7 seconds in which he refused to enter the game because he wanted to take the last shot, but Phil designed it for Tony Kukoc. But it was a smart idea on Phil's part because Kukoc hit a lot of big-time shots during that season, and Kukoc was a better shooter than Pippen. I can understand from Scotty's standpoint, if Michael Jordan was still on the team, would Phil have drawn that shot for Tony Kukoc? Probably not. And I understand that Scotty had a hell of a season, the 93-94 season. That's when Jordan announced his first retirement. Scotty was in the conversation for the MVP. The Chicago Bulls won 50-plus games that season. And he let down a lot of people. Not just Phil. He let down Steve Kerr, Horace Grant, and Bill Cartwright the most. He really let down Bill Cartwright. He wasn't even in tears. He was crying. He said, "Pip, I can't believe you let us down." And Scotty, when he mentioned it on The Last Dance, it's one of those things. I look back, but if I'm paraphrasing, but if I had the chance to do it all over again, I probably wouldn't change it.
Yeah. But like I said, it was all about these little smear campaigns to discredit. And not just him, not just Michael Jordan, but Jerry Krause as well. The late, great Jerry Krause. I mentioned this on Monday. Remember, Phil had problems with not only Jerry Krause, but he had problems with Jerry West. We need to start revisiting some things as far as history goes. Yeah. But as far as Jerry Krause and your teammates go, you just made a mockery out of them. And like I said, Jordan acknowledged, without Pippen, I don't win. Without him, you see no me. I didn't win a darn thing without Pippen. Pippen, I owe him my career because without Pippen, guess what? I'm just another scoring champion. He's acknowledged that and went into depth and told you, not just on The Last Dance. Remember when they had Jordan at 50? When Jordan was about, Jordan turned 50 years old, he did the interview with Ahmad Rashad, and he was going to be on NBA 2K as a special guest on there. He even talked about Pip then and spoke of him very, very glowingly, and spoke about how he was one of the most underrated players in the league, how he was great defensively, how he was able to get them out of a jam, how he was good, how he was great, how he was able to carry that team, when he was away. So
it's sad though, with Scotty. And then of course, remember when he was writing the book, his own book, he talked about Phil Jackson. Remember how he talked about Phil Jackson? Remember he accused Phil Jackson of being a racist?
Yeah, he accused Phil Jackson of being, which Robert Orr came out and disputed that. He said, Robert Orr came out and disputed that. Now, he did admit that there was some sort of language involved where he had to tell Phil, well, you have to sharpen up and read the room on certain language because one of the, all the, the chi and, the meditation and stuff, Phil would always say, remember who your master is. And he was talking about mastering yourself. But, when you have a lot of black players, hearing the word master would, it can come off as offensive. So Robert Orr did say, he's saying, hey, I did kind of talk to Phil about, hey, you need to watch that word master because guess what? You're around a bunch of black players. He said, but Phil was never a racist. Matter of fact, he was part of a Native American. He used to hang up. He used to be a part of these Native American clans and things of that nature. Remember when he first brought in Dennis Rodman? Him and Dennis Rodman were showing off artifacts to each other from, different Native American tribes that they received gifts from. So he called him a racist. And it was just a lot of things that
I do agree from the standpoint, Champ, though, that Robert Horry had to tell Phil, you got to be careful with some of the things that you said, because remember when Russ Soul, Commissioner Stern, implemented the dress code.
Yeah.
Remember Phil Jackson, the certain type of language that he used. Not going to say Phil Jackson is a racist, but the way you said it, though, you got to be really careful, though, because, again, the league is predominantly black.
Yeah. You can't have a posse and you can't let the inmates run the asylum. I remember that. And look.
And again, that doesn't necessarily make him a racist, though.
Yes. I'll say this. Like I said, people think a lot of times it's black and white when it's really young and old. I've said that once before on this pod when we talked about the Allen Iverson situation when they implemented the dress code. You know, it's really young and old. You know, the old guy is always going to say, we can't let the inmates run the asylum. And I remember my father, who's a black man, saying that. He's a black man who was born in the 50s, said we can't let the inmates run the asylum. But depending on who's saying that, it's going to get the wrong type of attention, depending on who says. If Casey Jones, God rest his soul, who's the coach of the Boston Celtics back in the day, if he said that, do you think that he would have gotten the same blowback from that? Well, say we can't let the inmates run the asylum? Probably not. Do you think that? But, you know, on the same, out of that same mouth, he did talk about, you know, with LeBron and his quote unquote posse. He did say that. So that could be misconstrued as well. So between the whole inmates running the asylum, saying, remember who your master is, and, you know, the whole posse situation, because we all know what that means, it could be perceived a certain way. But as far as a lot of players came out and spoke up for Phil. But between the Last Dance documentary where everybody spoke glowingly about you, you had a chance to tell your story on there as well. It wasn't just the common misconception of it was just Mike. That's the common misconception. It wasn't just Mike.
A lot of people said it. Steve Kerr, Horace Grant, B.J. Armstrong, Phil himself,
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis didn't really say that much about Scotty because he wasn't there during the time in the early 90s. He was there in the late 90s. But here's the thing with Scotty. The reason why he's looked negatively now because of the Last Dance documentary, and this was shown during the pandemic, now because of social media, now because that different generations are aware of your history, he's viewed negatively. And how he and plus he said either LeBron, who's the GOAT, LeBron or Michael Jordan, LeBron or Michael Jordan. There have been times he said LeBron as the GOAT. But my thing is with Scotty, with him and Krause, it wasn't just Scotty, it was also Michael too. Michael even made fun of Jerry Krause publicly as well. Now, yeah. Jerry Krause, look, I respect and appreciate what he did for me and Chicago Bulls fans by giving us pieces. As you mentioned, as he said, players don't win championships, organizations do. Yes. Jordan took it as offense because he felt like, wait a minute, did the organizations had to tell me I had to play, or when I had to do certain things such as the flu and all that other stuff? Michael took it as offense in terms of his approach to the game. And Krause, at times, and even you, Champ, you admitted, Krause's ego got a little too out of control from time to time. And I think with Krause and Michael, they miss one another. Krause realizes, organizations do win championships, but certain players you can't replace. Certain dynasties, certain teams you can't replace. And Michael, as great as he is as a basketball player, we know how he is as an executive. Yeah. We don't need to go any further with that because we've seen how bad he is as an executive. But back to Scotty. He's viewed negatively because he's more of a whiner and a complainer. And, Scotty, you've had, and look, Scotty, it was true. It's not like it was fabricated.
It's true. And the thing is, I think a lot of other stuff outside of basketball may have affected decisions, between a lot of other things. Don't do that. Between a lot of things that I can't, a lot of things that may have happened outside of basketball may have contributed to that. A lot of things that may have been in his personal life may have contributed to a lot of resentment. And to see certain things happen while you're in the middle of this smear campaign, to see certain things happen, it will kind of, tick me off too. I'm in the middle of this smear campaign and, I see people that I care about fraternizing with the enemy. So, yeah, a lot of things. And even before that, the Toxic King himself. So, yeah. So you got to think about, hey, I'm not going into any details. I'm just, giving summary.
You don't have to get into all the details. I know exactly what you refer.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff may have affected that. And I get it, man. When things happen in your personal life, you get furious, and it will spiral you in places that you don't know where you're going. It will spiral you every which way but left. But when you think about, but it was even before that was even going on. It was like the No Bull tour, slandering Michael Jordan, on every single platform that you ever went on, saying that him and Jordan never went out to dinner or even had a conversation, outside of basketball, off the court, when, everybody even saw him in the booth and know that wasn't true. And like I said, one mistake does not make you a bad basketball player. One mistake does not make you a bad basketball player, but that is indelibly etched in people's mind. And some of his criticisms of Krause was correct. Back when they didn't have Jordan, and they didn't have, back when they did not have Jordan, they had a chance to trade for another shooting guard by the name of Jeff Hornacek. He was campaigning in order to get him or either Dan Marley, because they needed some help before Jordan came back. So
not just that, champ, but also too, remember the contract that Scottie signed. Because remember, Scottie came from poverty, from Arkansas, where he was at in Arkansas. And Weinsdorf told him, hey, Scottie, don't sign that contract. I think you'd be selling yourself short. And Krause, not Krause, Weinsdorf is very adamant. If you sign a contract and if you outperform it, he doesn't want to hear from you again. Don't come back and asking me for more money.
Yeah. And but the thing is, he told you not to sign the contract. He's like, I think you're gonna be selling yourself short on this contract, and they told him it's gonna be outmoded because they knew the television contract was coming.
Right.
They knew the television contract was coming. And it's kind of like you telling me, he's like, hey, champ, don't go outside like that, man. The sky falling, a meteor's gonna fall on your ass if you walk outside. And I walk out there anyway, like I'm Andy Griffin, and then the meteor hits me. Then guess what? I ain't got nobody to blame but myself. So there's a lot of self-destruction when it comes to Scottie Pippen, if you really want me to be honest with you. It has a lot of Ultimate Warrior-esque type things that went on.
But I can't blame him for that contract situation, champ, because he came from poverty, real like poverty, like he was broke. And what happens if Scottie didn't sign that contract? And what if, God forbid, he suffered an injury? Could he ever get a possibility of another contract like that again?
Well, the thing is this. Jordan and a lot of those guys, they had to gamble on themselves. People don't realize when Jordan signed his second contract, he was only making $3. By the time, even though Jordan had won 3 championships, by the time he had went to play baseball, he was only making $3.5 million a year, because he only signed a 7-year, $27 million contract. By the time the only time he got his big money, that being Michael Jordan, was his last 2 years when he signed 1 year, $33 million contracts. So you could take a gamble if you are willing to. But if somebody is telling you not to sign a contract, they're looking out for you. I understand that you think you can't afford to gamble on yourself, But I'm telling you, look, this contract is not a good contract. It's not a good one. I don't think you should do that. Kind of like Chris Rock saying, man, I wouldn't do that stuff if I was you. And this is the owner. This is the man that pays me. And he's telling me, hey, I do not think you should sign this contract. The television contracts is going to come up. I think you will be selling yourself short. And guess what? You signed it anyway. But, hey, and if you know the nature of the beast, then don't be surprised about what it does. If he automatically tells you, if you know what you're dealing with, and he say, look, after you sign this contract, I told you not to sign it. Don't come back trying to renegotiate, and you still doing it, and you still did it. Hey, it's on you at a certain point.
And also, let's not forget when Scotty suffered that injury during the 96-97 season, how he came in to play for the 97-98 season. And Michael admitted that Scotty was wrong in that scenario. He felt that Scotty should have had surgery as soon as the season was over, rehab, and then get ready to go for the 97-98 year. And what Scotty was trying to do, this is what Michael said in his last dance, was trying to force management into changing his contract. And Jerry wasn't going to do that.
No, he wasn't.
Because like I said, he was adamant. And that's on Pippen on that scenario. But But heck, if someone, it's kind of hard though at first, because again, considering the circumstances Scotty came from with poverty, I could understand him signing the contract. However, if the boss, the owner or governor, however you want to use the term, because either owner or governor, if they're telling me you shouldn't sign that contract, but as time goes on, the TV deals, they're going to skyrocket, and you're going to make a hell of a lot more money. Why sabotage it?
Yes. And let's not forget, Scottie Pippen, he had the gun incident off the court. He had that little incident off the court where he had the pew-pew. Not to mention, he got upset one game and threw a chair on the court. So he did not help his case in a lot of cases. So between the Last Dance documentary, you going on this smear campaign in order to discredit Jordan after he said that you were the reason why he won. After you said, and the thing is, nobody discredits Scottie Pippen. Nobody. Remember, Amon Shumpert said the reason why Gary Payton got neutralized in that 96 NBA finals was because of Scottie Pippen. He said, man, they took Mike off Scottie Pippen and put Gary Payton, and that whole series changed right back around. But
I don't think, but Scotty, I think Scotty, the reason why he views himself a hell of a lot higher than what we view him. And I think that's his problem.
How high can you? The thing is this, and I'll use myself as an example. The thing is this, I might consider myself a great podcaster, but I will openly admit I'm not a fucking PSP. I'm a Robin. I'm not a Batman. That's how come you see me on these teams all the time. Let's just be real.
I am not calling you Robin. I'm
not a look. I am a Robin. I'm not a Batman. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how come you see me on these different teams. That's how come you see me here. That's how come you see me with BRF and Flash. I do better when I'm on a team rather than when I'm alone. And there's nothing wrong with being a Robin.
There's nothing wrong with that. But people, Jam, they have a higher perception of themselves and they feel like they're a lot better than what people give them credit for.
Well, the thing is, if you was able to win, if you perceived yourself as higher, then you would have won when Jordan left. And that was number one. Yeah. Because you was in the best position possible in order to do so. Had an MVP season, had great players on that team. Then, you could have won when you went to Houston. Instead, you asked to be out of there. You're not even 1 year after Charles Barkley had gave up all that money. so he can bring you to Houston.
Yeah,
Then you go to Portland.
Yeah.
Then you go to Portland. You have a 15-point lead in the fourth quarter against my Los Angeles Lakers in a game 7, and y'all blow the lead, and the rest is history. And the only thing we remember from that series is that iconic dunk. And then the very next year you come in, you get swept. If you want to get the respect, the superstar respect, you have to do what superstars do. And like I said, there's nothing wrong. Everybody wants to be Batman until it's time to do Batman things. And ain't that wrong with being a Robin. Ain't that wrong with being on a team. Ain't that wrong with knowing your role. Dennis Rodman knew his role.
Because Dennis Rodman didn't care. That was the thing. He knew his role. He was like, all right, I'm good. And Dennis, at the end of the day, he knew he was going to get attention, not only on, but also off the court. Yeah. So it kind of helped him in that regard. But and by the way, champ, on the Sports PSP pod, let's just say you The Rock, I'm Stone Cold. So
I'll accept that. That's cool. I like that.
Yes, you can definitely accept that. Either John Cena, The Rock, or Taker. Just give me Stone Cold for me.
I like that. I appreciate that. But yeah, ain't nothing wrong with being a Robin, man. Like I said, I like being on teams because I don't have to be as heavily reliant on myself. I don't have to be in my head overthinking everything. Guess what? You get people on your team and they put you in good positions and you put them in great positions. And guess what? Everything comes out of that. Ain't nothing wrong with being a team player. And the thing is, people acknowledge Scottie Pippen for being LeBron before LeBron. He was the first point forward that you would like to see. Originally, Scottie Pippen was supposed to be a point guard, but he was one of the first guys that we saw be a point forward.
Him and Bird, I think.
Yeah, him and Bird. When you saw him, Bird, and then after Scottie Pippen being a point forward, you saw the evolution of that being Grant Hill. Then you saw the next evolution of that being LeBron James. But the first ever point type of forward that ran the triangle offense to perfection was Scottie Pippen. So everybody acknowledges him. Everybody acknowledges him for that. I think that Scottie gets offended when people say, I think Richard Jefferson said it. He said it's time to acknowledge that Giannis may be a Scottie Pippen, not a Jordan. And I think when people say Scottie Pippen and they relate him to Robin more so than a Batman, I think he gets offended by that. But there's nothing to be offended by. You're a great player.
I think it's because of Skip Bayless. Because Skip Bayless, you know how he treats certain players. And I think that's one of the problems. No, I mean, I'm sorry, champ. I remember he has often said, Skip Bayless has been very adamant. He doesn't think Scottie Pippen is a top 50 basketball player of all time. Michael Jordan made Scottie Pippen. He always said that Jordan was the Long Ranger and Pippen at best was Tonto. But I think that's one of the reasons why Scottie feels that way, and he feels like he's higher. But look, all your peers have commended you. You're one of the greatest defenders to have ever played the game. I mean, even if you were a Robin, you were a hell of a Robin. And Michael has said it himself. I would not be where I am today if it were not for Scottie.
Yes.
They can say I won all those championships, but I didn't do it until I had Scottie. He's called you his greatest teammate ever. So I think for Scottie, it is what it is. Unfortunately, he's a heel. I can't argue. I was leaning towards tweener, but heel because of how he's been behaving the past couple of years. So, let's move on to another athlete, Cam Newton. I say tweener. The reason why I say tweener with Cam Newton, I mean, Cam does have a big mouth. Cam does have a big personality. And there are a lot of times Cam loves to say what's on his mind. And I have no problem with it. Sometimes people feel like Cam is kind of extravagant because of his outfits, you know, the hats, the clothes that he wears and stuff like that. But Cam is relatable. to a lot of these players in the NFL because, again, Cam is from Atlanta. Cam understands the types of situations, the circumstances. And Cam, he's always gotten a bad rep, from his days in college, at the University of Florida. Remember what happened that led to his departure from Florida, champ?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think he was arrested for purchasing a stolen laptop. And then after that, he leaves the team. Florida, they're going to win the national championship against my Oklahoma Sooners. He goes to Blinn Junior College, wins the national championship over there. Auburn, throughout his time in Auburn, he was a force to be reckoned with. 30 touchdowns on the air, 20 on the ground, even dealing with controversy himself because of the whole play-for-play scandal between he and his father at during his time in Auburn. I think his father, Cecil Newton, allegedly $180,000 to try to get Cam to play at Mississippi State. And then his father didn't even attend the Heisman ceremony because he didn't want to become a distraction for Cam and his son and the university. Gets drafted number 1 overall. The comments that he made with Peter King about being an entertainer and an icon. And I still remember the comments from Nolan Nawrocki from Pro Football Weekly, who called him very disingenuous, has a fake smile, always knows where the cameras are and plays to them, has an enormous ego with a sense of entitlement that invites trouble. It makes him believe he is above the law, does not command respect for teammates, and will always struggle to win a locker room. And Cam, I think Cam has had a solid career in the NFL. Before Andrew Luck, before some of the other quarterbacks, he became the first to throw for 4,000 yards in his rookie season, 21 touchdowns, 14 rushing TDs as well. 2015, he was the man for the Carolina Panthers, taking them to the Super Bowl, winning the league MVP. I wish Cam, after that Super Bowl, would have continued on with that type of success, because if he did, he would have lasted a lot longer in the NFL, and he would have had, obviously, a better chance for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Cam, I'm happy. I would say tweener because I'm happy with the success he's doing right now with ESPN, with his own podcast, 4th and 1, as well as having other guests on his show, whether it's Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, whether if it's Rich Homie, rest his soul, Rich Homie DeQuan, whether if it's Shannon Sharp, whether if it's any guest. He's had Bow Wow. He's had a lot of celebrities on his show. So I kind of had the feeling Cam had life after football. And, Cam has a big personality. Obviously, he's got the football camps. Now, sometimes with the football camps, Cam does invite some trouble with himself because he does do a lot of talking himself. We've talked about that before, champ. And let's not forget there was one incident in which the football player literally said to Cam Newton, "You ass." To which Cam Newton even confronted him, and he said, "I'm rich," which I thought it was disrespectful on the player's part because Cam Newton is a league MVP. It's accomplished, and he's taking the time to come help you, and this is how you treat him.
Yeah.
Cam sometimes gets a bad rep. I think Cam, let's not forget the comments that he made back in 2017, which caused him to lose his endorsement deal from Dannon. Do you remember the sexist comments he made about the female reporter?
Yes.
Right. So when you take all those things into consideration, I think Cam is at best a tweener. Go ahead, champ.
Babyface.
Wow.
Babyface. Just because the masses does not like you and like your personality doesn't mean you're a bad guy. I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't like my jokes on here. People probably don't like the way I make fun of myself in certain ways. People don't like the way that we joke amongst each other like we're brothers, which we are. But does that make us bad people? Hell no, it doesn't. Luke Kuechly came out, and every teammate that he had all said glowing things about him. There's been some incidents where, where they disagreed, But guess what? All of his teammates spoke highly about him, especially in that 2015 season. Remember when Luke Kuechly came out and said, yeah, he probably should have jumped on that ball? But guess what? He worked his behind off every single day, and he went to war with us every single day. Did Cam ever get a coach fired? No. Did Cam come out and say anything bad about Ron Rivera, although we knew that he was mediocre at best as a coach? No. Did he ever throw his wide receiver under the bus? Last I checked, the minute Benjamin, I forget his name, I think
Calvin Benjamin.
Remember Calvin Benjamin, the first thing he did when he left the team was start talking stuff about Cam.
Eli, remember he said that Eli, to which Cam Newton even had to confront him at one point.
Yeah, with his hands behind his back. Everybody know when you put your hands behind your back, you don't want to be perceived as a threat. But the thing is, reporters will try to pull everything out of their behind. He has a big personality. And I don't like the clothes he wears. What the hell does that have to do with football? Just because I look like the Mad Hatter and I dress like Blade does not mean that has anything to do with football.
Or to quote Colin Cowherd, quarterback heel.
Nobody cares about
which I still don't understand what the fuck that means. It just means probably being prototypical, being button up PC at that position because they view it on such a pedestal.
Again, nobody cares about what Colin Cowherd has to say. This is the same young man that disrespected the late great John Taylor when he was unfortunately unalive. And guess what? The first person to go on TV and say it was gang related was Colin Cowherd. So nobody cares what he has to say. And he never apologized to Sean Taylor or the Taylor family for that comment that he made. Although it came out that Sean Taylor was out. He was out with an injury and going to see his family. Somebody broke it into his house and fired a pew-pew and hit him in his lower groin area. He never apologized. So guess what? Nobody cares what Colin Cowherd has to say. All of this stuff where I have to be buttoned up all the time and stuff like that, it's dumb. I don't get the coach fired. You didn't hear about me being a locker room menace. That $180,000 that I probably got from the University of Auburn, wherever, guess what? It's NIL right about now. That probably wouldn't even scratch the surface nowadays.
Considering nowadays how these athletes getting paid.
These guys are driving around in $2 million cars, making $8 million a year. So that wouldn't even rub nothing the wrong way now. Now I understand he got into some trouble at Florida. Okay, young man mistake, you overcome it. But guess what? He didn't get in trouble when he was in the league. The only reason why his career was cut short because of his physical style of play and because of the injuries. I understand he got in trouble. I understand that football camp incident had happened as far as, somebody coming on the field trying to fight him. But that was another grown man in his feelings about something. And everybody came out and vouched for the story. The way that he teaches those kids is the way that they should be taught. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody came to my school. No NFL player, former league MVP came to my school and told me about anything. Nobody was coaching me. It was just me and my father. So for me to be out here, I'm not doing myself no favors. I'm doing you a favor. And that's a fact. It's kind of like Chris Berman coming on the show right now.
Oh my God. Can you imagine exactly. Chris Berman?
Exactly. So that's what that is. People can talk about Cam Newton's clothes. People can talk about his personality, but did that disrupt his locker room? Did that disrupt his play? Did that disrupt anything that he had going on? No. The whole dab when he was going through that 2015 season. Just because the masses doesn't like it doesn't mean it's wrong. There's a lot of examples in the WNBA of when the masses start catching on to what people are doing, then it gets exposed. We'll talk about that after the show. But the thing is, just because the masses,
we could talk about it right now, champ, because you brought this up Tuesday. A certain individual that gets constant criticism from the masses, one Angel Reese.
yes.
You made a comparison between her and Shedeur Sanders. Isn't it fair to say Angel Reese and Cam Newton do have a lot of similarities? Because Angel Reese with the me bounds or the other things that she trademarks, you see Cam, and that's actually a cool thing. Some people may not like it because why? You're showboating. I mean, because they're polarizing.
Yeah, it's always polarizing to the masses until the masses expose the real. Now, if you saw my video on TikTok, you see what I'm talking about. Now the media is even catching on how big of a trash talker that Caitlin Clark is. And now they can't bring up the R word because she's not getting into it with black players.
It's white players.
So you can no longer holler the R. You can't talk about the R word.
Did you see the other night when she got poked in the eye and that led to a fight? I think it was one of her teammates even had to come to her defense, Sophia Cunningham.
Yeah, Sophia Cunningham, she necktied one of the other players. But even before that whole incident happened, her and JC was telling her, hey, you can't do that. And Caitlin Clark came out and said, I can do whatever the blank I want. And a lot of reporters have been coming out saying that because all the masses has been saying, oh, they need to protect the masses, the major news media. And these are not guys these ain't guys like Stephen A. Smith. These ain't guys like that. These are major media outlets that are saying the WNBA and the refs are not under any obligation, and that Caitlin Clark does flop. She does talk trash. She does do everything that everybody has been saying. But because she faces Angel Reese at times, and they get the jawing or some incident happens, it gets blown up into something that it isn't. It took this whole incident with Marina Mabrey and JC in order to expose everything, in order for people to say, okay, she is a trash talker. She does do this. But back to my original statement, just because and the thing is, a lot of misconceptions can be done by the masses. And just because the masses doesn't like it, that doesn't mean I'm wrong. Just because I'm brash doesn't mean I'm wrong. Just because I'm confident doesn't mean I'm wrong. Is it because, does my confidence really bother you, or does my type of confidence bother you? I mean, and that's not talking about the R word either. Does my new age confidence of knowing who I am bother you so much that you have to say I'm cocky, I'm entitled? When I go into this weight room, onto this football field and work my tail off, why does that bother you so much? I'm not getting my coaches fired. Last I checked, Cam Newton didn't get in trouble with the law. Neither did Angel. They didn't get in trouble with the law. You ain't hear about a whole lot of stupid mess that they was doing off the field. You didn't hear them as a locker room disruptor. You didn't hear any of that when they was in Carolina. The only backlash that I really had with Cam is, when Jerry Richardson, when he was forced to sell the team, he didn't really, and I understood at the time, I do stress at the time, because Jerry Richardson, he was the one that drafted him. He was the one that drafted him, and he didn't want to go out there and speak against him, But if that was one knock that people can really say, well, they had a point, was the point that he didn't say what he had to say as far as speaking up as far as certain issues about Jerry Richardson. But at the same time, people can look at that and say, well, Jerry, he drafted him, so of course he's not going to speak on that. Of course, he had a close relationship with him, and he didn't see any of that. So, of course, he's going to back him and speak up for him. They can talk about that. But as far as Cam being a disruptor, what about all those outfits that he wears? What does that have to do with anything he did on that field? What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? Does an outfit that I wear, does it play football? No, it don't. Does it get coaches fired? No, it doesn't. Does it bother teammates? No, it doesn't. So why are we focused on my outfits? Now if you really want to call him a tweener and look at some of the stuff he does off the field, as far as the big family that he has, then you can look at that and you can say, okay, he's a tweener because of that. Because people can say that he didn't necessarily do it the quote unquote right way.
But that doesn't mean but just because he may not do it the right type of way, that doesn't mean he's an absentee father. That doesn't mean he doesn't take care of his kids.
Exactly. So, and there's a hell of a lot of celebrities with a lot of multiple families. So let's not get it twisted. So
he ain't the only one.
He ain't the only one. So if you want to hone in on that, feel free. But as far as Cam, I call him a babyface. Look at what he does for his community. Look at what he does for the kids. Look at how he goes to these speaking engagements. Like I said, he's always embedded in his community. And like I said, he didn't get in trouble. He wasn't out there. Like I said, just because the masses doesn't like you does not mean you're wrong. And especially when you have an idiot like Bill Romanowski talking about anybody. For him to say anything about Cam Newton is flat out ridiculous, considering the trouble that he got in when he was at the Oakland Raiders.
Remember what Romanowski said about Cam?
Yeah, because remember Cam Newton, he didn't go out and shake hands. He just walked off the field after the Super Bowl. And, he kept saying that Cam Newton was selfish. The game is not about you, young man, and stuff like that. He didn't say young man. He said it's not about.
But he shake Peyton Manning's hand. He shake Peyton Manning's hand, Cam.
Yeah, but he did. But that was Bill Romanowski said. The game's not about you, boy. It's about everybody. You know what I'm saying? So and of course that started an uproar. It's like Bill Romanowski. Who the hell are you to talk about anyone?
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Champ. So Tom Brady didn't shake Nick Foles' hand or Eli Manning's hand when he lost to the Super Bowl. So wait a minute. But that's the thing. And again, Champ, I'm not saying it's because of race. Not saying it's because of race. But Tom Brady didn't shake Nick Foles' hand when he lost in the Super Bowl. Neither did Eli Manning, not once but twice. But we didn't castigate Tom Brady. We didn't held that against Tom Brady. But the reason why, Champ, but as you mentioned, because we talked about this with Michael Vick, it's how you want to remember people. And when you like a certain person, you remember all the great or good things that they've done rather than the bad. Yes, and I think because of the masses, a lot of them don't like Cam because he's too extravagant, he's too outspoken, outgoing, and because of that, they feel like he's not our guy. He's not humble. But just because he may not be what you want, does that mean he deserves all the heat and criticism?
No.
I mean, people have different styles, have different flavors. Like, look, Russell Wilson, he gets a lot of flack by a lot of people, but you've come to his defense. There's nothing wrong with being Captain America. There's nothing wrong with being what you are. And if that's Russell Wilson, fine, that's Russell Wilson. Only problem I've had with Russell Wilson as far as off the football field is when he says Mr. Unlimited or the Subway commercials. I never really liked that, to be honest with you. It just kind of made me cringe, but that's a story for another day. But with Cam, it like you said before, Chip, it's who you like. And as long as you like that certain person, you'll do anything to protect them or say nothing but great things about them.
Exactly. Like I said, just because the masses doesn't like it doesn't mean I'm wrong. Remember, the masses, they criticize Baker Mayfield the same way. He went out there and won 2 straight division titles, nearly took the Tampa Bay Bucks to the Super Bowl. But, let them tell it they needed an adult in the room. And like I said, I use him as an example because to prove to people, this has nothing to do with the R word. It has a lot to do with how you are perceived, because for some reason, the world hates brashness for some reason. It hates confidence. The masses hate confidence. If I have a confident person in my room, that's what you need. You need somebody like that. You need somebody who can believe that they can run through a wall and you're not going to stop it, and can make you believe that. Confidence is contagious. Brashness is contagious. And when you have a teammate like that, shout out to my guy Josh. because he was one of my point guards and when I was playing basketball. Although I got 5 fouls a game, he made me feel like I can at least make 2 or 3 shots. So it's contagious. It makes you feel good. If you can rally the troops around you, so what if you're brash? So what if you're confident? You have a mindset of I can do it. And if you don't have that mindset about yourself, then nobody's going to have that mentality and that mindset for you.
Mind controls the body. Mind controls the body.
Not the body controlling the mind.
Mm-hmm. Without the mind, I mean, you can't operate. No matter the skill, the talent. Without the mind. Hey. Last one. Iron Mike Tyson. I'm going to go babyface. Now, I understand Mike Tyson, his support for President Trump, although I don't have a problem with that. That's his prerogative. And if people want to knock on him for that, stop, because The Undertaker and Kane, they've supported President Trump. And although I don't agree, but at the same time, last time I checked, Undertaker and Kane have integrity, a la other than Hulk Hogan. But that's a story for another day. But back to Mike Tyson, babyface. Just how the way he's turned around his life now. One could argue, and I've had this conversation before with like my father, my stepfather. Imagine if Cus D'Amato, Jim Jacobs were alive today. If Mike Tyson didn't have Don King, didn't have the people that he had, and if he had just Cus D'Amato and Jim Jacobs, would we be having conversations about Mike Tyson as the greatest to ever do it? And young Tyson back in the 80s, he was a force to be reckoned with, the youngest heavyweight champion in the world, knocking out Trevor Berbick, knockout. But the game that was named of Mike Tyson. Of course, Robin Givens, Lord. I mean, Don King, Lord. And then Desiree Washington. Ugh. Although you and I, we've had our conversations, I don't really think he did it. I think in that situation, he didn't have the best representation. I mean, come on. Don King, it was Don King's attorney.
It was a Texas lawyer.
Right.
He had a Texas lawyer represent him in an SA case. What the hell is going on in Miami? I'm not laughing at the situation, people. But when you have a Texas lawyer,
what he had.
Well, I'm laughing at what he had. It's kind of like going to Vietnam with a BB gun. It's not going to work.
But as his promoter, Don King, said, only in America. And that led to Tyson's incarceration for 3 years, converted to Islam, came back and fought, won the title. November of 96, he lost to Evander Holyfield, in which Tyson was a huge favorite to win. I think he was like a 26-1 favorite. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the second match against Evander Holyfield, when he bit Holyfield's ear. And, actually, Champ, believe it or not, there was actually more outrage to that than the rape situation.
Yes. And when you go back, I am a former amateur fighter, so I go back and I turn the sound down. But that's what I used to do when I was deep in the amateurs. If you go back and turn the sound down on that second fight, you see a lot of headbutts. I think you sent me that video, by the way.
Yeah,
I think you sent me that video not too long ago, about 3 months ago. Yeah, you sent me that video, and I turned, and that caused me, like I said, I used to be an amateur boxer back in the day. And I went back and turned the sound, and that's the best way to watch a fight, because when you got all that crowd noise, it influences you. When you go back and turn the sound completely down, there was a lot of headbutts, a lot of knees, a lot of stuff, and that was thrown by Evander. It wasn't necessarily thrown. And the thing was, in fairness to Tyson, before he unfortunately got hungry during that fight, he told the ref about it.
Mills Lane.
God rest his soul. He told Mills, like, he's hitting me, he's butting me. You see this, right? And I remember at one point he got up under. I mean, you got to think about this. I'm only 6 feet. I'm 6 feet after I take my vitamins every morning. I'm taller than Mike Tyson. Evander Holyfield is 6'2". What is your head doing under my eye? So, in fairness to Tyson, it's like when you look back on that fight, you do see a lot of headbutts and a lot of little dirty, little cheap things. And Evander Holyfield was known as kind of a cheap fighter at a certain point. Although he was highly skilled, although he was great, and he had his own video game too, Evander Holyfield Real Deal Boxing on Sega. He had one too. And, you know, he was just as bad as Mike Tyson was on Punch-Out on that game. But I digress. But, yeah, remember what happened with Hassan? I think his name was Hassan Rahman, when he fractured his skull because of the headbutt.
Yeah. I was swollen. His head was...
Yeah, and a portion of his head was swollen. Remember the Hassan Rahman fight? So, yeah, there was a lot of cheap things that Holyfield would do, but because Mike Tyson was, you know, he had already gotten convicted for that SA case. You know, there was he had the history before he ever he had the history of his childhood, and you know he had to walk. You know, he really had to walk on eggshell. And you know, let's just call a spade a spade. You know, being a big part of the hip hop community during the gangster rap era wasn't really popular. Let's just call it like it is. Even being a part of hip hop when it first started, because remember, he was good friends. He used to hang out with LL Cool J. He used to be in Harlem. He used to go to Dapper Dan. You know, shout out to Dapper Dan. I wish I could afford one of them suits, but I digress. You know, hanging out with Dapper Dan, hanging out with some of the big time guys, Eric B. and Rakim, hanging out with the underground artists was not necessarily a popular thing. So a lot of, you know, the masses looked at Mike Tyson as a villain, although he was just merely a knockout artist. So yeah, I mean, I understand why you label him as a baby face, especially at his peak. He was bigger than Michael Jordan. He was bigger than Bo Jackson.
Not just back then, champ, now, because how Tyson has in a better situation in his life right now, and I give a lot of credit to his wife, Kiki, and she has done a phenomenal job in helping Mike. You know, because Mike Tyson had substance abuse problems.
Yes,
he had he had alcohol problems, and how he was able to make a career post boxing. Whoever thought Mike Tyson of all people would do Broadway?
Or have cartoons. Remember Mike Tyson had a cartoon on Cartoon Network.
Yes, Adult Swim. Yes, I remember that. And also he was on the Hangover movie.
Yeah. So I understand why you would label him a babyface. I will label him a tweener because people are going to remember the SAKs. People are going to remember the bite fight. People are going to remember him in the Francis Botha fight. You know, I don't think people remember the Francis Botha fight. I used to watch all the fights with my father.
When he broke
what was so funny, I didn't even realize you could break somebody's arm like that. Wait a minute, he tried to break it, and he said it in the present. Yeah, I tried to break his arm, so what? But you know, Francis Botha, again, he was kind of cheap. And when you face cheap fighters, now what I mean by cheap, for those of you who don't understand what I'm saying, when you are cheap, that means you like to take cheap shots at people. You like to sneak one in, you know, trying to squeeze an inch in on somebody. And when you're very, very cheap, you cause reactions. And that reaction may not be the best reaction that you're going to get, especially with a Mike Tyson.
Let's not forget Lennox Lewis. Remember when he said about Lennox Lewis, I'm the best ever. My defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise Didi Allah. Remember when he said that?
He had the thing was, he admitted, he said, look, everything that I said was built up to this fight. I had to sell this fight. Nobody could sell a fight like Mike Tyson. And plus, he didn't have a lot of fights between that fight and Lennox Lewis. Wasn't a lot of warm-up fights. So he had to sell that fight as much as he could because people didn't believe he could win going into that fight. I remember that fight.
The Memphis
Lewis and Tyson is on. I never forget that, man. That was the first time that, hey, man, my grandma bought a big screen TV in order for us to watch that fight on. We was all sitting down at grandma's house. We was cooking. That was the best feast. That was a feast for the ages. You know, I mean, when you talk about a feast, I mean, Thanksgiving did not have anything on that year. Nana, God bless her soul, cooked ribs, pork chops. She had the fried chicken. She had the macaroni and cheese. It took 5 tables in order to fit everything that she made for that fight. That's how big it. The entire family was down there watching the big screen TV, the Lennox Lewis fight and Mike Tyson fight. That was a big fight. That was one of the last big, huge fights that we saw during that Tyson era. But I label him a tweener, man, because, you know, people are always going to remember a lot of different things about you. People are going to remember, you know, not just the cases that was in court. Remember the rage? Remember, you know, the road rage case, and also remember the Mitch Green situation.
When he
the Mitch Green situation. Remember, Steve Harvey made a joke about Mitch Green when, you know, his eye was talking like this, right? So I never forget that. He said, let's not forget when he had that little incident. You know, it was a lot of little incidents with Mike Tyson.
Do you remember the press conference between he and Lennox Lewis in New York? And then the reporter yelled, "Get him in a straitjacket," and I can't use.
And that was, look, I'm going to tell you just like this. When you have a bear,
don't poke it.
Don't poke it. Feed it melatonin. When you have a bear, feed it melatonin and honey at all times. Because the thing is, it's just like.
No, the reason why, champ, I got to be honest with you. And sometimes when I get angry or frustrated, for some reason, I watch Tyson bite Holyfield's ear. And anytime whenever I watch that video, I always ask myself, what the fuck did I get mad for? I mean, I was talking about it with my therapist the other day because, like, I still watch it to this day. And anytime when I get angry and when I see Tyson bite Holyfield's ear, I'm like, what the fuck did I get mad for? Like, all my frustrations get out the door. It's out through the roof. It's like crazy to me.
I try my best, and I probably need to go see a couple of people myself because of, you know, conditions that I may have. As you know, I'm a 2-time war veteran, but I probably need to go back to the wizard my damn self. But the thing is, I try not to let myself get that damn angry. Not anymore, at least. You know, I don't need any more incidents in my life. So every time I get a little bit angry, I just watch the funniest shit that I can possibly find. And I can depend on all my friends, including UPSP, to send me some funny shit during the course of the day, especially those South Park videos. It's like, oh, but I started getting mad at work because information technology is a very, very frustrating job because people start asking you because people act like they're just so helpless. They act like they can't type nothing. Could you type this in for me? I'm like, okay. And you start getting mad. It's like, you don't know how to do anything. Then, you know, you see one of those, you see a notification come up on your phone. Oh, man, one of my homeboys sent me a video. Then, lo and behold, it's you. And then, you know, one of those Family Guy videos, one of the South Park videos with Cartman. You know, that's how I get through my little days. But, you know.
Or Stewie when he beats the shit out of Brian.
Yeah, one of those videos.
And that is involving Mike Tyson.
Yes, it is. But the thing is, I understand why that happened with Tyson in the bike fight. Because the dirtiest thing that anybody can do to you in boxing is headbutt your behind. And trust me, like I said, I used to be an amateur fighter. I'm certified in, I'm just going to be real. I'm certified in Chinese Goju-Ryu, certified in Tonson no Mudaquan. I did Shaolin Goju-Ryu. I trained up under Professor Gardner down here, Columbus, Georgia side to the Grandmaster. did a lot of things. So headbutting somebody is the most thing that you could do. I understand people could say getting hit in the groin, but getting hit in the groin, it kind of sucks. But you come to, you get headbutted, you could break your nose, you could crack your skull, you can cause permanent damage with a headbutt. A headbutt, that's pure blunt force trauma, and your skull, for the most part, is thick. So you start headbutting someone, that could really cause a lot of damage. But unfortunately, people are going to remember that and say, hey, you went against everything you could. You went against everything. Yeah.
And also babyface champ. Remember, we didn't mention the wrestling, how he was when, particularly in '98. Because remember, champ, you talked about it yourself. Even though Bischoff was the one and Vince perfected it, Bischoff knew he was in trouble once WWF acquired Mike Tyson.
Yeah. Man, look, like I said, I label Tyson a tweener, but I didn't live through the Muhammad Ali era. My father lived through the Muhammad Ali era. And there's still me and my father. I got to call him again tomorrow so we could go back and forth again about the Tyson and Muhammad Ali debate. But when you think about Tyson, the video game, being a knockout artist, just knocking people out, just knockout. Knocking out Michael Spinks in 90 seconds.
Or the entrance.
Yeah. Let me explain something. I don't think people understand how good Michael Spinks was as a boxer. Larry Holmes was about to break Rocky Marciano's record of 49-0. Larry Holmes won 48 straight fights and had over 20 title defenses. Guess who beat him 2 times in a row? Michael Spinks. So people underestimate how good Michael Spinks was. That's how great he was. He broke one of the best world heavyweight champions of all times record when he was about to pass the great Rocky Marciano for 49-0. And I remember Larry Holmes got a lot of flack for that because you remember he said something very, very that was deemed disrespectful because he said Rocky Marciano couldn't hold my jockstrap. So, yeah, he beat Larry Holmes twice, who was one of the greatest world heavyweight champions of all time. So that's how good Michael Spinks was. So I don't think people understand how significant of that. That was probably the biggest victory of his career, that and Razor Ruddock. So, but like I said, unfortunately, people are going to remember all the out of the ring stuff, the crashing his car in New Jersey, the Robin Givens situation, a lot of tabloids situations.
And the situation with him and Teddy Atlas.
And the situation with him and Teddy Atlas. Which,
do you remember the story, champ?
Yes, I remember that. I remember that story about, Teddy Atlas and one of his young nieces, which I'm on Teddy Atlas' side with that, but that's a whole nother story for a whole
I can't blame Teddy on that.
I don't blame Teddy on that one because, start playing with folks' families and stuff, that's gonna, especially down south, so they believe in a lot of pew-pews down here. So, yeah, I gotta be, but unfortunately, the bad things are gonna take the headlines. I have to label him a tweener because of that.
Right, and I was trying to tell you, champ, like you said, the masses, just because the masses may not like you, that doesn't mean everyone doesn't like you. Sometimes people are just going to pick and choose how they're going to remember people.
No, but I will say this, the funniest moment that I ever seen with Mike Tyson before we move on was the fact that he checked that reporter in Canada. That was the greatest thing I ever saw. Because, bro, you didn't have to say that. Come on, bro. Like, really? You really gonna say that after all those years? And so I appreciate Mike checking him about that. So yeah, Mike, if you ever watch the Sports PSP podcast, I admire you for checking that Canadian reporter because he said something that derogatory to you. So,
and listen, I've seen Mike Tyson angry in a lot of occasions. My favorite interview is when he did on Fox on Greta Van Susteren when they asked him about the rape situation. And man, when I saw Mike Tyson's reaction with all the questions that he was answering, but I got to give a lot of credit to Mike, man, as far as turning around his life. But the only thing that my therapist or somebody probably mentioned about Mike Tyson, they don't understand why the hell he got that tattoo in his face.
That was a symbol of being a warrior and stuff like that. And sometimes you want to do something to be different. You want to do something to be different. I mean, not everybody has the courage to be. When I was younger, I wanted earrings. Unfortunately, back then things were different. We'll put it that way. And considering, like I told you on the show once, considering the family I come from, doing that wasn't that popular. So yeah, you could imagine the backlash that came with that. But yeah, at times you want to signify I'm going into a new direction in my life. I'm going into a new chapter. And I think that was it, man. And, I think it's admirable to get it right before a fight, right before a fight, because, you already tense, you already irritable, which that's true. Fighters get irritable as hell right before a fight. So you're already tense, you're already irritable. You're trying to make sure that you don't get cut. You're taking it lightly on sparring and everything. So for you to get it right before a fight is crazy. And remember when he first got it, he said this isn't even halfway done. So, so thank God he didn't get whatever he had left. Thank God he didn't get all of it done.
Remember when he did an interview, and shout out to our guy Brendan from the block. Please go like and subscribe to his content. Remember when Jim Gray asked him the back injury? I broke my back.
Spinal.
Yes.
I would love to we tried, myself and a couple of other guys. Shout out to Christopher Williams, some of my old sparring partners back in the amateur days. We tried to do Mike Tyson's workout. That ain't work for us, because he used to do 1,000 push-ups a day, 1,000 sit-ups a day, run 5 miles, and that was just what he did per day. That's not even including the weightlifting and stuff like that. That's not even including that. He used to do 1,000 push-ups, 2,000 sit-ups, run 5 miles, and then from there, that was just the normal what he would do. Then he would spar for like 15 rounds a day. And it was just it was grueling.
Yeah, man. But Tyson, he was man, but imagine him in Cus D'Amato. That I mean, and Cus D'Amato saw something in Tyson. He was gonna be a champion, which he was, and he ended up becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in the world, man. But I will say this before we move on to the next subject. I would love to do a podcast with two people other than Champ and BRF. That's Dennis Rodman and Mike Tyson. That would be my dream come true, to do a podcast with Dennis Rodman and Mike Tyson to talk about sports, basketball, boxing, women, of course, and everything else. Now, come on, you would love to do that too, Chip. Come on now.
Of course, man. Of course, of course. Especially with Dennis Rodman. Hey, man, I wish I could party with Dennis Rodman back in the heyday. So, yeah, that was, yeah.
But speaking of another big man who loves to party, favorite Rikishi moment, his dancing. I don't know. This is just me. I just like it when the big man dances. It's just funny. And Rikishi definitely got some swag, definitely got some swagger, definitely got some personality. Nah, I don't like seeing the stink meter. I don't like seeing that part. Although the one funny part was him, Vince, Rock, Trish Stratus. But I loved him and Stone Cold back in the early 2000s. I loved that. And I definitely love the 6-man Hell in a Cell match, Champ. Remember Rikishi, Taker, Kurt Angle, Triple H, Rock, Austin, and then Taker choke slamming him from the hell, all the way from the Hell in the Cell cage to, it was crazy. But I love Rikishi, big fella, and his family. Of course, his family. We all know his family, the heritage, the ancestry. And my other favorite moment, when he supported his son. Remember the video I sent you on which he got on Vince Russo?
Yeah, Vince Russo, please be quiet. That's like, stop. And which, rightfully so, you're going to take up for your son. My father would defend me, especially when you're talking about losing something, or which that's a great moment for me, for a father to come to his son's defense. That's always a good thing.
But I just love Rikishi, man. A big fella that knows how to dance, knows how to smile, definitely had personality, definitely has swag. That's what I love about Rikishi. What's your favorite moment, champ?
Oh man, Rikishi Fatu. We actually did his dance at the talent show when I was a child.
Really?
Yes, we actually did a dance. We did that same dance, me and my main guy, my childhood friend Tori Howard. We did that dance at a talent show. They dimmed the lights and we did that, and everybody was, everybody knew where it was from. Everybody knew it was from wrestling because all of us were wrestling fanatics. But that dance was something cool. When Grandmaster Sexay used to take out those sunglasses and put them on Rikishi, it would automatically put him in the cool mode. It would automatically put him in cool mode. And he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid. And I admire that, man. A lot of the big guys, we get a bad rap. We get a bad rap for being angry. You get a bad rap for being vicious. You get a bad rap because you're automatically a big dude. But Rikishi, him to be as big as he was, him to be as smooth as he was, for him to, to do something as comical as the stink face. And then for him to be an Intercontinental Champion. And you gotta, if you're gonna talk about Rikishi, you gotta talk about good old JR's commentary along with that. You gotta talk about JR's commentary along with that, man. Look at the size of that ass. I didn't say he did. Don't laugh at me. Look at the size of that ass. So
God damn. I know you're copying from JR. I know you're just going by what JR said. And yes, Brandon, shout out to Brandon again. John Cena did an Elite Heel promo tonight, PSP. Y'all gotta watch it. Brandon loves himself some John Cena. He considers him the GOAT. Got no problem with it, although I'm an Austin guy. Champ is more of a Flair Taker guy as far as with the GOAT. But back to Rikishi, man. He made a big guy fun and happy. And his family, of course, the great family, the ancestry, the heritage. Just love that about Rikishi. And he just, I mean, it was just, he was fun to watch. Yeah. Fun to watch, man.
And when you think about that friend group that he was a part of, BSK, when you think about it was Rikishi, Yokozuna, the Godfather, the Undertaker.
Make sure you don't leave out any Jack Daniels.
Yeah, don't leave out any Salvio Vega. That just goes to show you how Taker. And the thing that I like, that just goes to show you how Taker could relate to anybody. Because that was a very diverse group. You got Rikishi, you got Yokozuna, you got the Godfather. That was a very, very diverse. Remember, at one point they had a little locker room beef. Y'all the clique, we BSK, so they would have got tattoos and everything.
But Taker's good with everybody. I mean, look at him and Shawn nowadays. Taker at one point said he didn't want nothing to do with Shawn, but now ever since when Shawn came back to retirement, they good.
Yeah, but Rikishi, he made it fun to be a big guy, man. Usually you see big guys, they were monstrous, they were heelish, they were just, super just, they were bigger than life, but it made you scared of them. When you think about King Mabel, it made you, God rest his soul. When you think about him, he made you scared of him. When you think about Yokozuna, God rest his soul, he made you scared of him. When you think about Mark Henry for certain parts of his career, it made you afraid. Rikishi made being the big man, being the big, big smooth guy cool. He made it. And even when he was a heel, man, that dude could dress his behind off, had the fat form leather suit on with the sledgehammer, with the cool sunglasses. Even when he was a heel coming out the bad man, he still made being the big man look cool. He didn't make being a big man look scary. He was actually that guy that you probably can look. He reminded me of that dude who's on the pool table getting all the girls, and you knew that's Big Smooth right there. He getting all the girls. He could dance. He got that swagger. So that's why I like Rikishi, man, especially when me growing up being kind of a big dude myself. So Rikishi was one of those guys that made it, cool to be a big guy in wrestling. Like I said, we think about King Mabel and all of the big kind of, doughy guys. They, it was always heels. When Rikishi came in, and he got us bigger. At one point, his pop was as loud as Austin's, was as loud as The Rock, was as loud as anybody when he was a babyface. So, and that pop when he came out on that return, when he was with The Rock, that was something special to behold as well, man. So, man, Rikishi, with him winning the Intercontinental title, every time he came out, and did the dance, doing the robot, doing the stink face. There's so many moments about Rikishi, man, that I appreciate, man. Hey, if you ever get a chance to watch this, Rikishi Fatu, man, thank you for making my childhood great. And you made the big man look cool, man. You made big guys. You gave good guys. You gave us big men a good name, man. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And last but not least, favorite Ja Rule track. Ja Rule in the 2000s, I love Ja Rule's work. Between Me and You with Christina Milian, Put It On Me featuring Vita and Lil Mo, him and Ashanti. The relationship, the chemistry between them two. I mean, they put out some great tracks together. I mean, Always on Time, Mesmerize. The chemistry between them two. I mean, it's murder. I mean, Ja Rule gets a lot of flack because of obviously the whole beef between he and 50 Cent. But back in the day, Ja Rule put out some great tracks. Bangers too, Living It Up. I'm Real, the remix with him and Jennifer Lopez. Ain't It Funny? So, I mean, I love some of Ja Rule's work. And some of his performances back in them days in 106 in Park, man. But he and Ashanti, I mean, back then in the early 2000s, that was a really great rap and R&B duo between those two. Really good, great duo between those two. Love their chemistry. Love the music videos. Down for You. Shout out to the late great Irv Gotti. God rest your soul. Thank you for Murder Inc. Records. Thank you for some of the artists that you put, such as Ja Rule, Ashanti, Charlie Baltimore, and much more, man. Undisputed World Champ, what's your favorite track from Ja Rule?
Holla, holla.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Even Ja Rule said I was trying to be Tupac and stuff back then, but Holla Holla was good. Bitty Bitty Bitchy was a great album, and Thug Love, that was Bobby a great Brown. One with Bobby Brown, and the way, hey man, the energy that Bobby Brown came off that helicopter with, that was epic. I think The Rain is Calling Murder. The song he did with Cadillac Ty, that one was good.
Let's not forget that track with him and Mary J. Blige.
Yeah,
it was Mary J. Blige's song. Yeah, Rainy Days.
He had a very, very unique sound, man. It's unfortunately that him and some of the beefs that he had kind of dampened his career. But look, people may disagree with me on this one, and I don't mind taking heat. Without Ja Rule, there is no Drake. He set the tone for stuff like that. He was the first rapper that was singing and doing duets and singing in low tone and doing stuff like that. Without Ja Rule, there is no Drake. Ja Rule set the tone for that. He set the tone. Huh?
That's a hot take right there.
Yeah. Ja Rule was the first rapper that I ever seen get on duets and sing with actual other artists. People used to knock him for that back then, but look at what Drake is doing right now. The first to do it was Ja. He got a lot of heat back then because everybody was trying to do gangster rap and stuff like that. But the thing was, he did what worked for him. And look how well those songs have aged to this day. Look how well those songs have aged. And the thing is, look, people, look, let's just be clear. I had 50 Cent's mixtape when he came out. 50 Cent is the future. I had 50 Cent's mixtape when he was on Stretch Armstrong. Yes, I know I'm from down south, but guess what? I had 50 Cent's mixtapes when he first came out. Of course, everybody is gonna side with the new hot artist. And 50 got him, but that was no excuse for, hip hop was not as forgiving as it was back when MC Shan and KRS-One was beefing. MC Shan lost that beef with him, and KRS-One was able to still have a career. After that whole beef between Ja Rule and 50, 50 was the biggest artist, as far as debut ever. So, and the debut build-up was years in the making. So that unfortunately put a damper on his career. Not to mention, people don't like to acknowledge this. A lot of beef came with
Eminem too.
The Eminem, and then you remember he was beefing at one point earlier in his career with DMX. Because, people, and the thing is, and the way he said it, he's like, bro, both of us have deep voices. Both of us have deep voices, and unfortunately, if people, and they sounded very, very different, by the way. He said, if people can't distinguish who it is between me and you, then they don't want to, because I don't sound exactly like you, and you sure as heck don't sound exactly like me.
But I thought people just knocked on Ja Rule because he was trying to act like Tupac.
Who didn't want to act like Tupac back then? Everybody was trying to act like Tupac. The only reason why everybody, look, the best form of flattery is imitation. Everybody wanted to be like Pac. I mean, even Jay-Z, he said, look, Tupac dissed me about 5-6 times. I still love Tupac. So, of course, you're a new artist coming out. You're going to look at what grabbed attention. And he admitted it. He said, that's how come on my second album, I switched it up. I didn't want to do that anymore. Vitty Vitty Vitty, it was the gangster album. It was good. But on that second album, I said he made sure he did what was him. And like I said, when you think about the singing, when you think about the singing on hooks and doing a lot of things, doing duets and stuff like that, who started that first? It was Ja Rule. It was Ja. People don't like to acknowledge that because he lost the beef, unfortunately. But it set a tone for a new way to rap, a new way to express yourself, a new way to rhyme. Always on Time was a great hit. Mesmerized, all of that. Like I said, that set the tone for what Drake came out and did with the whole singing. That set tones. People don't like to acknowledge certain things because, like we stated throughout the show, they didn't particularly like Ja Rule because guess what? He either was trying to be Tupac in a lot of people's opinion on his first album. He sounded like DMX, but was not as good as X, which everybody will acknowledge. And he lost the beat. There was a lot of knocks on Ja Rule, but guess what? you can't deny what he did for hip hop and how that new sound that he made affected us in the future. Before he did that, you had Slick Rick and a lot of other rappers who would kind of sing on hooks, but not in that little, but didn't give it that R&B feel. Right. You know, we heard Snoop Dogg saying, "I'm not flagging, but I'm just sagging." I bet you don't want to see the D-O-double-G, but he did that in a gangster tone. You didn't hear him do that in an R&B type of tone. So Ja Rule set the tone for what Drake can do today. Because without Ja Rule, it's not as accepted. And if you really look at it nowadays, people are going back and listening to Ja Rule's old albums and saying, "Damn, this stuff was actually tight. Stuff was actually real, real good." Unfortunately, we were so caught up in the beef back then of, you know,
that overshadowed that.
Yes, it got on. And the thing was, look, had Eminem not gotten in that beef, we probably would have been talking about a whole new story.
Well, it wasn't just Eminem too. You also mentioned Busta Rhymes as well.
Yeah, that was a huge mistake. Yeah, that was a huge. That was
Busta even said it himself. Look, listen, I may joke here and there and stuff like that, but when it comes to the meat and potatoes, but again, I think Ja Rule, he gets slept on because he did have a lot of hit singles, a lot of big party songs like "Living It Up." And if you play some of the younger people, if you actually listen to some of his music back then, you'll realize just how good he was. But people don't want to talk about that because of the other things we discussed. The beef with 50, the situation with Eminem, and all the other things. And I just don't think he got the credit or the respect that he deserved. People always had the question about his identity and a lot of other things. But back in them days, I did love me some Ja Rule. Especially in them days watching 106 in Park, man. That was fun.
Yes, back in them days. Yeah. And if you look at the three who brought back New York and who brought back Def Jam, there was three guys who brought back Def Jam and brought back New York in the late 90s, early 2000s. Jay-Z, DMX, and Ja Rule. I remember the cover of The Source. I remember with all three of them on the same songs multiple times, and them just going at it on those tracks. So for them not to acknowledge that Ja Rule played a big part of the history is an injustice to hip hop, because without Ja, without Jay, without X, Def Jam doesn't go into the stratosphere in the late 90s. Those three are who set the tone for Def Jam to be back.
Let's not forget LL too.
Yeah, but LL was always, you know, the staple mate at Def Jam.
I know, but you know, even in the 90s, the late 90s, he took it to another level. Plus, you even mentioned one of his albums, GOAT, greatest of all time. He coined that term.
Yeah. From Earl to Goat men ago. People need to watch that movie, by the way. If you're a coach or somebody, you need to have your kids watch that movie. But yeah, Ja, X, Jay-Z, they brought back Def Jam. They brought back the East Coast. Yes. So yeah, so you got to acknowledge that, man, because guess what, man? For you not to acknowledge it just because a new artist came out and you lost the beef, that's crazy within itself. That's irresponsible, if you want me to be honest with you.
Two things could be true.
Yes, indeed.
Well, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP podcast. Again, guys, unfortunately, we couldn't do it without BRF, but we always put on a show as we normally do every Friday nights. The highlight of Friday nights is Undisputed World Champ. Always calls it, as I said, the young Charles Barkley, the Al Roker of journalism. Thank you for always hopping on the pod whenever you can. I know you're busy, brother, but any final words, and tell them where to follow you at, brother.
Still covering the WNBA, man. Basketball season is falling to a close, but we still have the W. Let's put these women on the map. Let's showcase their talents and not the controversy. And let's give these women their flowers and the credit that they deserve. We complain about the NBA not being physical, about the NBA being soft, about not being competitive. Well, we have that with the W at this point. So let's support these women and let's support the movement that they're trying to do. That's all I have to say for that. Let's support these women and let's support them so they're in the middle of a collective bargaining agreement. Let's get these ratings up so they can turn a profit, so they can negotiate and at least $1 million salaries. So let's get these ratings up so we can watch these women do their thing so they can get paid.
Any final words, man? Tell them where to follow you at, brother.
On TikTok, Undisputed World Champ. Like I said, I'm covering a lot of the WNBA. That pigskin is back. First preseason game is on July the 31st. So you best believe myself and PSP is going to be covering that very, very closely. Shout out to Flash. Shout out to BRF, who unfortunately wasn't here today, man. I'm going to catch you on Monday. Please like and subscribe to the Undisputed GOAT podcast. Triple double what we call ourselves. And it's always a privilege, a pleasure, and an honor to be on the Sports PSP podcast. And I must say, man, like I say, I call you the Tom Joyner of podcasting. I'm always going to pay homage and give you your flowers and, amen, and acknowledge, in the great words of Roman Reigns, we acknowledge you. And, hey, keep doing your thing, man. I'm damn proud of you, man. And you have worked your heart out. Like I said, I say this every single show until I get blue in the face. Every time I'm at work, I'm doing some stuff on these computers. I'm fixing something. When that phone click and I see a notification on Instagram, I know it's PSP with some new content out, man. And I'm like, man, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to see that. And so this man to my left, your right, works his ass off. He didn't just get to 115,000 followers by just sitting on his ass. And I hate to use that type of language, but I'm going to just keep it real. He didn't get this far by sitting on his ass and let the stuff come to him. He got out there and he got it. And like I said, I was one of the few. I've been here since day one. I'm one of the few day ones here. So I have seen the evolution of the Sports PSP podcast. I've been here and I've seen how much work he put in. This man works his tail off and then paves the way for a lot of other people like myself, man. So homage needs to be paid, credit needs to be due, respect needs to be paid. And there's no other podcaster, no other person I expect in this game as far as sports is concerned than you, PSP, and I appreciate everything, bro.
Thank you always, brother. Appreciate you. Love you. Thank you to everyone for always hopping into the Sports PSP pod. We're always going to do a show for you every Friday nights. And stay tuned for the NBA Finals, Game 7, because you never know. Sports PSP pod may do a video here and there. May ask Champ to do a video. If he's busy or not, I will always ask him, because if there's one person I want to work with, it's him. He's The Rock. I'm Stone Cold. He's the Shaq. I'm the Kobe. And for everyone out there, just this weekend, just we're a day over from Juneteenth, but let's take the time to celebrate and enjoy family, enjoy friends. Summer is out. Enjoy as much as you can. Please stay out of trouble. We want to make sure everyone is safe and secure. We're going through some tough times right now, but just continue to enjoy life, be around friends, be around family. If you're going to go to a bar, that's fine. Just please drink responsibly. Have a good time. Stay safe. God bless. Y'all know where to follow me at Sports PSP Podcast. And we is out. Peace.